And greetings and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Rush Limbaugh, highly trained broadcast specialist, and a program that meets and surpasses all audience expectations on a daily basis. Happy to have you along. Fastest 3 hours in media. Here we are already at the third hour. And the phone number for phone calls later is 800-282-2882. All right, Mike, take the music down. We have Prime Minister Netanyahu on the phone with us from his Knesset office in Jerusalem. Only have 10 minutes, so I want to get right to it. First, welcome to the program, and great to talk to you again, sir.
Well, it's very good to talk to you, Rush.
All right, some observers in the United States are sensing a new Israel here, less willing to commit to total victory as in the past, on the basis of the way current conflict with the Hezbollah groups being waged. Is that true?
I hope not. I've given my support as opposition leader to the government. The people of Israel overwhelmingly have given the support for victory. That is, to remove the threat, much as the U.S. During the Cuban Missile Crisis said, those missiles have to go. We say Hezbollah and those missiles have to go, because otherwise there'll be no peace for Lebanon, no peace for Israel, no peace for anyone.
Now we're hearing, I'm hearing some discontent in this country, that there's some concern that the current prime minister isn't willing to unleash the full complement of Israeli ground forces. If that's true, what's the reason?
I don't know. We're in the middle of a war, and I don't want to start second-guessing. I think the important thing is to fix your eye on the goal. The goal set by the government is to eliminate the missile threat, and eliminate and break Hezbollah's fighting ability. And whatever means are required, then those means should be used. Land, air, sea, you name it. I think it's important to understand, Rush, that we're not just dealing with Hezbollah Islamic militant threat. We're dealing with an Iranian-backed assault on a Western country, and we're just the first target. And they openly say that we're the first target. We're the small states. You are the big states. Europe, though it doesn't understand it, is a middle-sized state. So it doesn't really side up with us when 2 million of our people are hunkered down in bunkers, when our cities are rocketed, our children are murdered, and when we respond against these terrorists who are hiding deliberately in civilian areas, they attack us. They're actually, in doing so, attack themselves. I don't think that the U.S. has any such misunderstandings, any such lack of clarity. I hope that the Israeli government doesn't have lack of clarity. We need clarity in our target, and the target is to remove our common enemy committed to our destruction, and something that we have to remove as a clear and present threat to our future, to our security.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm not trying to foment discord between you and the Prime Minister either. It's just that so many of us who support you remember past Israeli involvement, 6-day war, Yom Kippur War, and it just looks different this time. And so we ask questions. Why? Because like you, we all know that the focus of this is Syria and Iran. We don't hear our government talking to us like that. We don't hear our government telling us that in this country. Do you ever sit there and wonder, as an individual, I know these are maybe tough questions for you because you're leader of the Likud party, and you all are very united today in this latest battle with Hezbollah. Do you ever wonder to yourself why the U.S. doesn't act now to take out the regime in Iran? The entire world knows who's behind this. They've been helping al-Qaeda, attacking troops in Iraq. They're not far from getting nuclear weapons.
Well, I think this is the greatest question of our time. It is not only of monumental importance to Israel, because Iran, while denying that the Holocaust took place, is openly declaring its intention to make another Holocaust with the 6 million Jews of Israel that they intend to eliminate. Iran also intends to become a nuclear power, an empire, with long-range missiles that now reach every capital in Europe and within a decade would reach the eastern seaboard. And they have a crazy, particular Shiite perception of a grand apocalypse that is supposed to occur right about now, in which millions will die on all sides, on both sides, and this brand of Shiism will rule the world. Now, you may ask, how is it possible? Religious wars died in the 17th century. Not for them. not for them, not for the likes of Al-Qaeda who smashed into buildings in New York, and not for Iran that is building an atomic arsenal for that effect. So what they've really done here is fired the first test salvo. And the question of our response, by our response, I mean not only Israel's response to Hezbollah, but the international response to Iran and its way station Syria. I think that's a crucial question that you're raising. Now, President Bush has said, and he said something very important just recently, a month ago. He said that he would not let Iran acquire nuclear weapons. That is very important. How he plans to do it, what means he plans to use, of course, he leaves with himself. But there's no question right now that there ought to be a division of labor. The U.S. and the responsible members of the international community, if you can find some, they should press Iran and Syria to cease and desist the support and arming of Hezbollah. And Israel should be left to do the job that it must do, that is to disarm Hezbollah and destroy its missile arsenal.
Is
needs to be done?
Well, is anybody stopping you from doing that? Anybody putting the brakes on you?
I don't think so. Not yet, I have to say. I don't think that, we've had all wars have limited time. It's not an unlimited amount of time anyway, and I said that from day one. And the time that you have available, you should use with the power that you have available. The more power you use, the less time you need. So obviously we don't have unlimited time, and therefore we should use more power, a lot more power, to crush Hezbollah. That's what's required. And I think if Israel shows this resolve, if the Israeli government shows this resolve, then America, first of all, America would respect it. At the end of the day, so would the Arabs.
Let me try this question. There's a little bit of a lengthy question, and I know the phone connection here is not the best, but I want to ask you this because it's a topic that's really roiling much of the American population, and that is that the war has two aspects: the PR spin war and the reality.
Right.
And the media, Mr. Prime Minister, suggests that Israel is losing the PR media war and has got to change its tactics so that it can win the PR media war. I don't think that Israel can ever win a media war, and I don't think George Bush can ever win a media war because the world's media is not interested in the facts of reality in this current conflict. You can point out the reality of the Hezbollah people using civilian human shields all day long. It still will be ignored. Do you think you can lose the real conflict with Hezbollah if you also lose the spin war, or do you not care about that? Just focus on the reality of actually winning the war as that used to be defined.
First of all, win the war. Win the war on the ground and win it quickly and decisively. That would be always my first preference. But secondly, you're quite right that from the 20th century on, we've learned that to cement a military victory, you must have a political victory. To have a political victory, you must win the battle for public opinion. To win the battle for public opinion, you must convince that public that your cause is just and the cause of your enemy is unjust. There's never been a more just war than this one. That's obvious. We were fired upon from Lebanon and from Gaza when we left and vacated every square inch in a totally unprovoked manner. Our soldiers were kidnapped and murdered. Our cities were rocketed upon. So this is a just war. Now, can Americans understand that? I happen to think that Americans understand that very well and overwhelmingly so. I don't believe that is the case in Europe, in Western Europe at least, perhaps in Eastern Europe, where they understand power a little better. But Western Europe shows signs of debilitation, signs of not understanding where their interests are and where morality is. They view everything in a post-colonial prism as though we are colonialists. We, who are living in our land,
right,
who are gripping onto our land for 3,000 years, we're supposed to be the colonials. But nevertheless, I sense a crack in Europe too. It is not that they support Israel. It is that they don't support the Islamists. And they don't support the Islamists because they are being plagued by the same plague. So for them, it's a pox on both your houses. But what America knows, Europe doesn't know. It's our house. It's the same house. Israel, America, the free societies of Europe, we're the same house. And the likes of Iran and Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda, they want to destroy our house. Israel, to be sure, would be their number one target, but we're only their first target, and they say so. They want eventually to get you, and they have no problem and no inhibition firing upon civilians, hiding among civilians. These are, by the way, two war crimes according to the Geneva Convention. Not only can you not deliberately fire on civilians, you cannot deliberately hide among civilians. You have here this criminal organization supported by criminal regimes with a criminal goal of destroying Israel, but ultimately destroying the West. Let's not be fooled. Let's gear ourselves and fight this battle, and let's win it.
Well, we admire every effort you're making. We really do. It's tough to wage war on an enemy that considers the death of its own children a victory. Just one more question, because I know your time is limited and you have to go, but I'm trying to figure out how you have a ceasefire, how we can have a ceasefire with terrorists who are backed by Iran, which have as their goal the destruction of Israel. Has anybody, any country, anybody from the United Nations or anybody else explained to you in Israel how this ceasefire, a sustainable, meaningful ceasefire with a bunch of terrorists, would actually work?
No, I don't think so. I don't think a ceasefire by itself will work. I think it will work the other way. I think running away from terror or not finishing terror gets terror to come back and bite you even with greater bites. I think that the important thing is what are the conditions that lead to a ceasefire. And it seems to me that the most important thing is to dismantle Hezbollah's fighting ability and destroy that missile arsenal. That's when you should have a ceasefire,
right,
when they can't fire anymore.
Okay, so what you're describing here is a ceasefire that results from your victory.
Yes.
Exactly. Makes perfect sense to everybody. Well, look, I'm glad you made time for us today, Mr. Prime Minister. I know it's hectic for you right now. We appreciate the time very much, and the best to you.
Always good to talk to you, Rush.
All right.
Thank you for your support.
You bet. That's former Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. And a quick timeout. Your phone call's coming up next. Do not go away. I am not joking. I'll send you the email. We are back, El Rushbo, having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Thanks again to former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu. Met him in Israel the first time I went there, the only time, 1993. Subsequently, when he was the Prime Minister of Israel, he visited New York once, and I was on vacation, and the call came in that he would like to meet with me, staying at the Essex House, I think, on Central Park South. And I said, well, I'll come off vacation for this. So I went in there and we smoked cigars for an hour. They'd closed off one of the dining rooms or one of the ballrooms. That's where he was receiving various people. Met Abe Rosenthal. Abe Rosenthal was in the line waiting to go in. He was very nice too. This after he had left the New York Times. I don't even think he was writing for the Daily News then. But anyway, he's a walking education, Mr. Netanyahu is, and if he ever leads the country again, it won't be a bad thing. Jim in South Bend, Indiana, you're next. I'm glad you waited, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rush. Mega Notre Dame Irish dittos to you and to your listening audience, an intelligent listening audience.
That's exactly right.
And I'd like to say hi to my son, who's an intern out on Wall Street this summer, and he's also following the Rush Limbaugh School, and he'll be out there making money for the country.
Terrific. As well as for himself. That's important, too.
Yes, sir. Rush, to the point, when I was at the Air Force Academy, I wrote a paper, and the paper says basically what you've been saying, and that is a war is nation versus nation. And McNamara's war, Vietnam, was the first war ever fought that I could find where we did not go against the nation, we went against the military. And as a result, we never seem to break the will of the people who are supporting or coalescing to the military, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon or to Saddam Hussein. And I just wish people would understand, for over 3,000 years, it has always been nation versus nation. And civilian casualties, destruction of infrastructure, this is why you don't want to go to war. And this is why you should not want to go to war against the United States, because we should go in and instead of risking lives, American servicemen on the ground, we should be, as Bibi said, we should be going in, and power shortens the duration of war. I hope Israel does this, and I hope the world understands that war is nation against nation. It's not a pretty thing.
I don't know. See that. I keep asking myself that, Jim. I've had more military people than I can think of. The first person that told me this, a good friend of mine, now deceased, a Vietnam veteran, a general, just all-around raconteur, B.T. Collins in Sacramento. He said, look, and he did this in a letter to the editor, to the Sacramento Bee. There was something going on. It must have been Contra, something that's what I think was Contra Cold War related, and a bunch of the writers in letters to the editors were typical bloggers today on the left. Oh, we can't, and he got frustrated, and he wrote this big, long letter to the editor that said, look, you people, the purpose of armies is to kill people and break things. That's it. And we're not using armies for that purpose now. We use armies to deliver food. We use armies. They still engaged in warfare tactics, and our soldiers are best trained in the world and carrying out their orders. When it comes to civilians, when it comes to nation versus nation, you're right. That's what I think. There's less of a commitment and willingness to do that. We can target a military or an enemy military institution or an enemy air force or what have you, but that's not the traditional ways that wars have been won. You can debilitate the enemy in that regard. You also make a good point about we never won the hearts and minds of the North Vietnamese people. I don't know that we can win the minds and hearts of the Lebanese people or any other group in the midst of a war right now, but if they were made to pay the consequences for supporting the people they're supporting, it might have some effect. Now, I know that's a hard thing to say, folks, but we're talking about war here. We're not talking about Romper Room or the Oprah Show. We're not talking about political correctness in this country. War is still war. Finally, you made a good point about Bibi. When, my first question to him had to do with, is this a new Israel? Are we seeing an Israel that's not willing to go all out as it had in the past? When I first asked him that question, he was reluctant to go there because they are unified in this country, in Israel, in this battle. Like something over 90% of the Israeli population supports the government and what they're doing, and he doesn't want to make any public criticisms and all that. But later in the interview, as you remind me, he did point out that power shortens the duration. And so I think he fully well understands, well, I don't want to put words in his mouth or emotions in his heart, but I think he understands the question when I ask it to him: if this is a different Israel. Now there's a interesting story that I just got from www.israelynn. I guess that's the IsraeliNewsNetwork.com. I'm not sure. But the headline here is incredible to me. Morale remains high as Hezbollah begins to crumble. And this is interesting. Morale of the Israeli Defense Forces, morale of the Israeli people. Nowhere else am I seeing that Hezbollah is crumbling. This Israeli news source, and by the way, I'm going to link to this. If you read this account of what's going on, it's unlike anything else you're seeing or reading anywhere. It's just fact A, B, C, and D up and down the line. All right, we are back having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Rush Limbaugh with half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. So here I was asking earlier today, I wonder what Dominique de Villepin thinks of all this. I haven't heard him say anything. And Snerdley said, oh, yeah, he said something. Well, I just found out what it is. Puke City. French leaders praised Iran and disparaged Israel on Monday in two separate news conferences held in Beirut and in the Paris area. Prime Minister Dominique de Villepin told reporters at the news conference in France that Israel's willingness to suspend its airstrikes on Hezbollah terror targets was only a first step, still not enough. De Villepin maintained that the cessation of the aerial attacks is insufficient in light of the situation in Lebanon. At the news conference held in Beirut, French Foreign Minister Philippe Douste-Blazy, and I don't know how you pronounce French names like this, so I'll just Americanize it. Philippe Douste-Blazy praised Iran as a stabilizing force in the Middle East. He said this in Beirut. The French Foreign Minister Philippe Douste-Blazy told reporters that Iran is an outstanding country with great people and an honorable civilization. It has a crucial role in the region. Well, Iran is the primary patron of the Hezbollah. It's a terror organization. Fired close to 1,800 Katyusha missiles at northern Israeli communities in the past 20 days, killing 19 civilians and injuring hundreds more. So the French are back as we know and love them. Here is Jose in Grand Rapids. Jose, welcome.
Thank you, Rush. Much has been said about the so-called green light that Bush is giving to Israel, but I think that green light is not just coming from the U.S. I think that the Arab League and some of the governments in the Middle East have finally come to the realization in some of the corridors of power, except in Iran, of course, that they have come to see that Islamic fundamentalism has become a major threat for the region than the U.S. Bush boogeyman. And the Palestinian cause, it's obvious for everybody after the election of Hamas that it has transmuted from a so-called local patriotic cause with socialism as its program to become officially part of the international Islamic fundamentalist jihad. And its goal is a Sharia law and theocracy throughout the whole Middle East all the way to Spain. And so the obvious failure of the Palestinians in electing Hamas has been paraded before the whole world. They do not want peace with Israel. The cause of Palestine has become the excuse for the failure of the Palestinians at governing.
There's a theory out there, Jose, that didn't the new Israeli or the Palestinian Prime Minister Mahmoud Abbas, wasn't he ready to put to a vote to his people whether or not they just wanted to shut it down and peacefully coexist with Israel and let it be done? And that's really when the Hezbollah got in gear. That's when the Iranians and everybody ordered the Hezbollah to get in gear. They couldn't have that. That's the last thing in the world they want.
I'm sorry. I agree.
Go ahead.
That's exactly right. Israel is becoming now the real battlefront for the war against fundamentalist Islam. Baghdad and Iraq has become secondary. That's why Al-Qaeda wants to jump in the show. But you know that there's a major shift in the Middle East as a result of 9/11 first, and second of the war in Iraq. I think 9/11 even shook some people in the Middle East, and whether genuinely or not, I think even Arafat. What people have to realize that Arafat is a product of the Cold War more than a post 9/11, and so the battle within the Palestinians came after 9/11 when they started dancing in the streets, and Hamas and Hezbollah became more powerful as they saw that Arafat, the PLO, and all that were old-timers that were not going to bring what they really wanted. And so they really do not care about a two-state solution. This is a fundamentalist, religious, zealot movement that is fired up to the hilt, and it's not going to be stopped in any other fashion. The people in the Middle East, the powers that be, are afraid of it, just as everybody else. On the one hand, the U.S. is not going to abandon Israel no matter what, and eventually Europe is going to have to choose between the disappearance of Israel or the establishment of a caliphate all the way south of Europe. And I think when that time comes, and the time is here, the battle for Israel is become the battle, the most important battle in the war on terror.
I'm going to tell you, you are very, very right about that. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jose from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He is not Jose, are you a scholar?
Yes, I consider myself such. I'm an independent writer. I was ran out of the academia for obvious reasons. But that's what I do.
Well, hey, hubba. I was run out of academia, too. It was called speech class and ballroom dance taught by a former drill sergeant in the wax. You were thrown out, I'm sure, for different reasons. But anyway, I just wanted to point out this is no guest expert. This is just a caller and listener to the Rush Limbaugh program with one of the most knowledgeable audiences, firmly established now, second most knowledgeable audience it's the most knowledgeable broadcast audience in the country. The most knowledgeable broadcast radio and TV audience. This program, the Pew Center, and their exhaustive research has documented that today. And Jose here is a glittering example of that. Shining example of that. One thing you said, Jose, the two things I want to comment on. First, it goes underreported how nervous the Arab League really is about this and how nervous they are about the Iran-Syria axis. The drive-by media in this country late last week tried to say more and more Arab sympathy with Hezbollah and Syria over this. And that story, New York Times purported to report that, but it didn't say it. All they could do was get comment from the quote-unquote Arab street. And you might say, what kind of power does the Arab street have? They don't run their governments. Second thing that you said was at the end of your comments when you said that the battle for Israel has become the most important battle in the war on terror. Now, I know that there are a lot of Americans who don't want to hear that for a host of reasons. I know that there are a lot of Americans who think that if we didn't support Israel, if Israel were not an ally, if we didn't give them military and foreign aid, if we weren't so publicly supportive of them, government to government, that we wouldn't have any trouble with Islamic terrorists and so forth, that the vast majority of the enemies we have in the Arab world today are due strictly to our association with Israel. If you are one American who thinks that, I know it's tempting, it's very seductive to believe it, but it isn't true. We are just as much an enemy as any other Western culture and Western society is, because whether you are Jew or Christian or what have you, if you don't fit the model that the Islamofascists have created, you are considered an infidel, and they say that they're working on instructions from their religion to wipe out everybody who's not a proper Muslim. And they hide behind a religion, so it's very difficult to criticize them without getting the dander up of people who want to talk about separation of church and state or the First Amendment or what have you, or bigotry or anything of the sort. But I am here to tell you, in my humble opinion, and Benjamin Netanyahu said the same thing as you just did, Jose. Israel has become the battle for Israel has become the most important battle in the war on terror, and it's becoming more and more obvious. Israel's done everything it's been asked to do. Land for peace. Give up the settlements. Stop this, stop that. It doesn't stop. The people that make these deals break these deals, because it's never been about that. It's always been about the destruction of Israel. And this is now undeniable to people. The only people that don't want to admit it are people who can't afford to admit it because it would totally render them ineffective as being wrong constantly on big issues. They're not going to admit that. And Netanyahu said, we're the first target, but we're just that. We're the first target. You are next. And he's exactly right. And that's why, you wonder, Rush, have you spent so many hours on this since this all started? It's like I said to you at the top of the program, when I was told after 9/11 that we were declaring war on terror, I believed it. And I thought, good. It's necessary. This has been going on for way too long, way too many decades, with no response at all other than piddly little court cases. But that's not the way this is going to be won, ultimately. Can't fight it as a criminal case. It is what it is, and it isn't that. And so when there are people who are willing to sabotage our victory in this war against this enemy for their own personal aggrandizement, elevation to power, or their animus toward George W. Bush, then it's frustrating, it's maddening, and it causes palpable anger in me, not just frustration, palpable anger. But it's going to have to be dealt with at some point. And what's happening here in Israel is such Israel cannot lose this. Hezbollah must lose this decisively. There can be no question. It has to be such a clear defeat that no amount of PR or spin will change that reality. They can put all the pictures up. They can parade all their dead babies all they want, like they've been doing. Babies they killed. Babies they saw to it that were placed in the line of fire. They can do that all day long, but at the end of the day, the reality will be they have been defeated. That's the message that needs to be sent. Thanks, Jose, for the phone call. A brief timeout, and we will return in earnest. Well, I tell you what has to be some of the absolute best timing in the history of politics. Key Democrat leaders in the House and Senate have united to call on President Bush to begin pulling U.S. troops out of Iraq by the end of the year, citing an overtaxed military, billions of dollars spent, and ongoing sectarian violence. In a letter Bush released on Monday, the Democrats backed a plan for the phased redeployment of troops. It's the usual suspects. Let's see, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi. Well, maybe it's just those two, but the headline says key Democrat leaders in the House and Senate. It's probably just two people. And the whole thing here has been portrayed as some big bunch of Democrats. Anyway, great timing, guys. You have really stepped in it now. Both feet are in the quicksand. From the Jerusalem Post, the Israeli Defense Forces assessed on Monday that the Hezbollah's rocket launching capability significantly compromised by the fighting that took place in the past 3 weeks. It was estimated that while the organization still has hundreds of rockets, only a number of launchers remain with launching capability. The IDF asserted it had killed some 200 Hezbollah operatives. Most of the names are not released. One of the more prominent targets hit was Jihad Atiyah, said to be responsible for the killing and kidnapping of IDF soldiers Benny Avraham, Adi Avitan, and Omar Saweed in 2000. Meanwhile, it was released for publication that an IAF UAV bombed Israeli Air Force, bombed a truck the previous night that had traveled from Syria into Lebanon on the border between the two countries. It was unclear what the truck was carrying, but I'll guarantee you it probably was not a Mr. Softy truck. All right, now, folks, Matt Drudge has just posted on his website with a siren the most incredible story, and it's by John Solomon of the Associated Press. Now, probably going to damage his career, but I've mentioned Solomon on previous occasions, that Solomon seems to be a fair guy. Solomon's stuff for AP appears to be really balanced. The prisoners held at Club Gitmo during the War on Terror have attacked their military guards hundreds of times, turning broken toilet parts, utensils, radios, and even a bloody lizard tail into makeshift weapons, Pentagon reports say. Incident reports reviewed by the AP indicate that military police guards are routinely headbutted, spat upon, and doused by cocktails of feces, urine, vomit, and sperm collected in meal cups by the prisoners. This exciting you, Dawn? This is sick stuff. They've been repeatedly grabbed, punched, or assaulted by prisoners who reached through the small bean holes used to deliver food and blankets through cell doors, the reports say. Serious assaults requiring medical attention, however, are rare. The detainee reached under the face mask of an IRF, Initial Reaction Force team member's helmet, scratched his face, attempting to gouge his eyes, states a May 27, 2005 report on an effort to remove a recalcitrant prisoner from his cell. I can't wait until Dick Durbin reads this. I can't wait. Well, we'll never know what he really thinks about it. It's going to be tough for him to, he'll have to focus on the Pentagon setting AP up, lying to AP, and so forth. But this is clearly just the exact opposite of what we have been treated to in the drive-by media ever since Abu Ghraib and Club Gitmo became stories. And that is that these are just innocent little people, and they've been dragged away in their home countries, and they're being mistreated, and they're being tortured, and so forth, and Club Gitmo and at Abu Ghraib, and it's just horrible. And now we find out, and this is a long story. When I printed it out, it's Just a little over 3 pages. Well, I know they're being confined, and I know they're desperate, but they are not the harmless, lovable little fuzzballs, like I am, that they have been portrayed to be. These people are human debris. And given the chance, they would kill these guards with whatever weapons that they could manufacture, makeshift or otherwise. Quickly, I want to go to Phil in Ontario, California. You got 1 minute, Phil. Can you do it?
Yes, Rush Megadittos from Ontario,
Thank you.
California. I couldn't help thinking when you and Mr. Netanyahu were speaking about how you win the hearts and minds of these people, and it reminded me of Charlie Colson, who used to work with Nixon. He summed it up, and you may have to censor this, but I'll give the exact quote. He says, "When you get them by their balls, their heart and mind soon follow." So it goes back to what you said. It's a no negotiated settlement. You either win or you lose. That's with a street fight or in a war.
Yeah.
And it's just anyway. Thanks again for your good work. Right?
Yeah, appreciate that, Phil. Thanks for that. Thanks. Brevity is the soul of wit. That is a tactic that has been proven to work in marriage as well. All right, what a show this has been. This is destined not just for the Limbaugh Broadcast Museum. This one destined for the Hall of Fame. In fact, it's going to be tough to winnow out those that don't qualify for the Hall of Fame. A quick time out here, ladies and gentlemen, back in 21 hours with more broadcast excellence. How can you win people's minds and hearts, though, if they don't have any to begin with? Think about that for tomorrow. Here's Donna in Middletown, Maryland. Welcome to the EIB Network. Hi.
Hi, Rush. It's so good of you to have me on your show today.
Thank you very much.
And I'm also, my husband and I are proud Heritage members.
Good for you.
Love it. And so proud to be part of that. What I want to share with you is I think what the Republican Party desperately needs is a solid, proud, basically fearless individual who's principled and, says what he means and does what he says, much like Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yep, Netanyahu's taken everybody to school. Netanyahu's shown how it's done. You know what makes Netanyahu? What do you think? What is it that makes, let me just ask you, what is it that makes Netanyahu?
He's principled, he's proud, he's conservative, he's everything he portrays himself to be.
Wait, now there are a lot of principled conservatives. There are a lot of proud conservatives. But they're not Benjamin Netanyahu. What makes Benjamin Netanyahu? There is an answer here. I don't mean to be putting you on the spot, but...
No, I'm enjoying it, actually. I think he's a solid individual, and he's got a very, I'd say, a strong belief system, and he's honest.
You are getting warmer, but it's a one-word answer.
Okay.
Begins with a P.
I mean, I said principled, and I said proud.
Passion.
Oh, absolutely. How could I miss?
It is passion that allows Netanyahu to animate those principles, to bring them to life. His beliefs, his policies, his ability to conduct himself as he did in the Oval Office or yesterday at the joint meeting in Congress, the passion that he believes, the passion for his beliefs, the desire to shout them from the mountaintop, the desire to be understood, the desire for nobody to be confused after they've heard him speak. But it is passion, excitement, eagerness, passion is what brings all of the ingredients to life. And it is passion that is the magnet that draws people to you. I mean, if you listen to two schlubs talk about bowling in a passionate way, they own you. Passion is the key. The Republican Party needs some passion. And I'm sorry, folks, moderates just don't have any. You know what Netanyahu means in Hebrew? Netanyahu in Hebrew means gift of the Lord, or talent on loan from God. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Open line Friday Eve. Can't wait. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Israeli and Palestinian/Hamas conflict has just reached a new level of seriousness, with the low-information voters finally getting clued in. There is now a hashtag on Twitter. Can the end of this war be far behind? Greetings, my friends. Great to have you, Rush Limbaugh, behind the golden EIB microphone, as I am each and every day, here at the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. As always, really just happy to be here with you. Telephone numbers 800-282-2882. If you want to appear, the email address lrushbo@eibnet.com. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, a hashtag. Jews and Arabs refuse to be enemies is the new hashtag. And as such, we can expect peace to break out in any... Now, I understand some of you... Rush, why are you so cynical about people getting involved and showing how much they care and trying to help? Why are you so... I know these are the questions that some people ask. To me, those are embarrassing questions. They're embarrassing questions to have to answer. No, they're not embarrassing to have to answer. Well, they are in a way, but it's embarrassing that they're asked. But just this is what is becoming of what used to be serious thought. I mean, this hashtag is a direct product or direct result of what has been said to be education throughout our public school system. You know, conflict resolution 101. Can't we all just get along? Can't we all just be friends? It's at the root of it is the failure to accept and failure to believe that there are bad guys. And at the root of it is this ridiculous assumption that we're all the same, that we're all equal, that we all have equal amounts of goodness, and we all have equal amounts of badness. And if we can just get the excess of badness out of what are essentially good people, then everything will be fine. And so we can shame the bad people with a hashtag on Twitter. And it doesn't work that way. It never has worked that way. It is a world governed by the aggressive use of force. It's not a world governed by words, doctors, clean water, speeches, or what have you. Now, I understand some people are just doing this because they want to get in on the story, want to be involved. But some people actually think that it's going to matter. And that's another aspect of it, is that everybody, and this is understandable psychologically, everybody is searching for meaning in their lives. The left uses that to great effect. Global warming debate, you name it. Tell people they're destroying something that they can redeem themselves with proper political, ideological behavior, and bam-o, you've got instant supporters. So, speaking of the first popularly known hashtag to resolve a conflict, of course, was the Boko Haram kidnapping of all of those girls in Nigeria. I have an update here. In the 3 months since Islamic extremists kidnapped more than 200 Nigerian screw girls, 11 of their parents have died. According to town residents, the town where the girls were kidnapped, Chibok, is cut off by militants who've been attacking villages in the region. The hashtag, apparently, well, they're mocking the hashtag over at Boko Haram. We had that audio soundbite from a little while ago where the leader of Boko Haram is laughing at Good Luck Jonathan, the leader of Nigeria, and at the hashtag campaign, if you will, in general. So in the 3 months since Islamic extremists kidnapped more than 200 Nigerian schoolgirls, 11 of their parents have died. 7 fathers of kidnapped girls were among 51 bodies brought to the Chibok hospital after an attack on the nearby village of Kotakari this month, said a health worker who insisted on anonymity for fear of reprisals by the extremists. At least 4 more parents have died of heart failure, high blood pressure, and other illnesses that the community blames on trauma due to the mass abduction 100 days ago of over 200 girls. So not only did the hashtag not get the girls back, the hashtag bring back our girls made famous by Michelle Obama, no effect. And now there's one for the Israeli-Middle East conflict. And what's happening over there is an outrage. Again, we have the unwillingness on the part of this administration, by the way, and countless others, to recognize the good guys and the bad guys. An unwillingness to recognize that we have a long-standing ally. This administration seeks to blame our ally for the problem. And if you understand liberalism, it makes perfect sense. Why? Forget the details of the region, which just add icing on the cake. To understand this administration's lack of support for Israel, all you have to do is take a look at the Middle East and try to find who a leftist would think the victims are. Because the victims are always what dominate everything. The victims are on whom and around whom policy will be based. Well, in the Middle East, there is a singular power, and that is Israel. And as such, they are the automatic oppressors. As liberalism looks at things, the victims are the poor Palestinians and Hamas, and all they are doing is trying to protect themselves against this vicious, all-powerful, unfriendly invader known as Israel. The left will always side with the victims, and they will always try to manufacture victims. And in that scenario, victims are incapable of committing acts of evil, because all they're doing is defending themselves. All they're doing is responding to vicious, aggressive attacks by the evil power, the majority, if you will. And so in this case, it would be Israel. There's a total ignoring of what is driving this, and it is nothing more complicated than anti-Semitism. And it has been around since long before this conflict began. There is no solution in this conflict that can be found by any government policy from the United States originated by any liberal Democrat. It's simply not worldly possible, because they will not even admit what the root problem is. They will not assign good guy and bad guy status to the combatants. In both instances, they're both bad guys, but the real bad guys, Hamas, the Palestinians, you name it, they get a break. They're cut some slack because they're poorer and they're less educated, and they're the chosen. They're the ones that we all need to care about, because they're the ones that are being oppressed. They're the disadvantaged. They're the ones that are being mistreated, blah, 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 blah. And so whatever they do to defend themselves or get what they want, it's understandable. We must take time to understand the rage. Never mind the fact that Palestinian and Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, you name it, militant jihadist leaders were trained, they were collaborated with by the Nazis. They held something in common: the hatred of the Jews. The Nazis aligned back in the 40s, 30s, and 40s with anti-Jewish interests in the Middle The quote-unquote closest we've ever come, Bill Clinton, in a moment of desperation, gave Yasser Arafat, when he was alive, virtually everything Arafat was demanding. Not virtual, almost everything that Arafat was demanding, Clinton gave. You know what Arafat did? He moved the goalposts. And added new demands. Why? He didn't want a resolution. He didn't want there to be any solution to this, just like the race industry in America does not want there to be an end of the so-called racism that defines, in their view, the United States. None of the major causes advanced by the left or claimed to be important are causes they really ever want to solve. And it's the same thing with the Palestinians and Hamas. There's no solution to this except the death of every Jew they can see and find. Short of that, there's going to be consistent, never-ending, all day, all night, 24/7, 365 war. That is the natural state. That is what is normal for the enemies of Israel in the Middle East. Peace to them is simply a momentary lull, usually in the midst of resounding defeat, where they have to take a timeout, retreat, regroup, rearm, come up with new plans, and then start it up all over again. Peace to the Israelis is what peace is to you and me. The absence of war, the absence of conflict, the absence of threat, presence of justice. That's what the Israelis seek. It's not what the Palestinians seek. There's no two-state solution. There is no mutual accommodation because there's nothing held in common here. For the longest time in analyzing this so-called peace process, intellectually, it's always amazed me. It seems so clear to me, and it doesn't matter. Administration after administration, Secretary of State after Secretary of State, doesn't matter. We get the same application of policy. We want to sit down and get the combatants at the table, have negotiations, have chats, do whatever. It never changes. In any conflict, there must be a winner, and there must be a loser. And until such time as that happens, none of this is going to end. I've always asked myself, why do not we just let Israel win? What is wrong with this? They are our ally. They don't seek to eliminate all Arabs from the face of the earth. They don't seek to march every Arab they can find into the Mediterranean. They don't seek to bomb every Arabian capital off the map. That is the objective of their enemies, though, where the Jews are concerned. But this is a war, and you don't end wars with peace talks. Take any war in the past, for example. World War II, how did it end? Well, in Japan, it ended when we dropped a couple nuclear weapons, and that made the Japanese surrender. And that's when there were negotiations. And during those negotiations, we told them how it was going to be. We won. Ditto VE Day in Europe, victory in Europe. We defined the terms of victory militarily. In both instances, civilian targets were exactly what was sought. That's how you won. Civilian casualty, bombing Dresden, bombing Berlin. There wasn't any such thing as precision surgical strikes. The two bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, population, general population targets. That's what war is. It's horrible. Once you find yourself in it, there are definite things you do to win, definite things you do to lose. But you do not win a war by having peace conferences. You don't have victory attached to peace talks. You don't negotiate. You don't send a hapless Secretary of State all over the world trying to convince the two parties to do whatever it is he or his boss want. It's just a fruitless, useless, wasteful exercise. I am 63 years old. The Middle East peace process is as old as I am. It's as old as you are. There hasn't been anything substantially changed in my lifetime in terms of the nature of the disagreement. Because the nature of the disagreement is anti-Semitism. Isn't it amazing? People around the world will point fingers and blame at anti-Semites everywhere they can find them, except where it is concentrated and focused in the Middle East. Then you can't even find the word coming out of their mouths. And that's because the anti-Semites in this case happen to be the poor, hapless victims of an all-powerful, evil neighbor seeking to impose its will on the region, is the perverted view that at least this administration has. Got to take a brief time out. There's lots to do on the busy broadcast today, folks. You'll sit tight. We'll be back, continue, and resume right where we left off after this. Let me read to you just a brief excerpt from a piece on all this today, National Review Online, by my friend Andy McCarthy. Right now, there's a tremendous opportunity to demolish Hamas. That would be a good thing. It would be a good thing for everybody. These are jihadists. These are people that strap bombs on their babies and send them into public bus stations and so blow themselves up. Doing so is the only chance of breaking the Palestinian jihadist will. I mean, you want to stop this, don't we? We all claim to want to end terrorism. We want to end it as much as we can. The Palestinians claim to have, there are three things the Palestinians need to concede if there is to be peace, quote-unquote peace. They must accept Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state, which they do not right now. They must renounce terrorism. They call it resistance, but they must renounce it. And they must abandon this silly right of return demand. That's the definition of peace. That's that if you can come up with a speech or a set of talks or negotiations to convince Hamas to do that, then have at it. Ostensibly, it's what Kerry and Obama are trying to do. Although I don't think they are. I think they look at those demands as excessive and unrealistic. It is Israel that must concede. It is Israel that must give up more land. It's Israel that must back off. It's Israel that must stop killing civilians. It's Israel that must stop provoking. But if you really want peace, this is what the Palestinian concessions must be. If you want a two-state solution, which is what everybody claims they want, there's only one way to get it. There's only one way to get a two-state solution, and that is the jihad has to be defeated. Like happens in any war, the bad guys have to lose. And so, get out of the way. Let Israel win. And why do we have to keep reminding people that means siding with our ally? That is such an embarrassing thing for this administration to admit that Israel's an ally and to side with them? No. Can't do that. The worst thing that could happen right now is what John Kerry is seeking, and that's a ceasefire. Because ceasefires, that's peace to Hamas. That's when they regroup. That's when they rearm. That's when they form new plans before Israel has destroyed the chance for all of that to happen. We'll be back. Don't go away. How are you? Rush Limbaugh here on the cutting edge of societal evolution. Soon to be starting our 27th year. 27, it's unheard of. In this business, that is unheard of. It's rare in a lot of places. And it just, some days it just all seems like yesterday. And then other days, I'm cognizant of how much time has gone by. It's just, it's amazing to think all of you have been there this time. Well, many of you came in during various stages as you were born and grew up. Some of you are Rush babies from the very beginning. Others are new arrivals, but there's a core of you that have been there since day one. And it's the most amazing thing. Anyway, we'll get to your phone calls here as the program unfolds. Just let me tell you one thing. There's a lot going on. I had no intention of even opening up with the Israeli-Palestinian thing today. People ask me frequently at 5 minutes before showtime, what are you going to lead with? It happened yesterday. I got to know, what are you going to lead with? So I don't know yet. They said, well, you better figure it out because you're up in 10 minutes. And, you know, it's got everything here ready to go, just whatever strikes my fancy when the microphone goes on. And right before the program started, I'm watching CNN and I see about this hashtag campaign. Jews and Arabs refuse to be enemies. And I saw, for crying out loud, is this for real? And CNN spending serious time on it as though it matters. And so I said, well, okay. I do what I do every day. I get up, I look at the things I believe in under assault and seek to defend them, the people I believe in under assault and seek to defend them, or when I am confronted with abject stupidity that makes me frightened for the future of the country, I deal with it. And this hashtag stuff, on one hand, it's laughably funny. On the other hand, these people vote. On the other hand, they are impacted, affected, moved, influenced, persuaded by things that are just absolutely stupid. And this idea, and, you know, social media, it's for many people, social media is the only thing that gives their lives meaning. They have some measure of fame, they think, because they have followers, or they have friends, or what have you, or they have people that retweet them. And so there's a psychological component, and whatever they can do to cause favorable reaction, hashtag, who's going to be critical of a hashtag? Well, count on me. Throw cold water on all this meaningless emotional investment like the Boko Haram thing. So that's why I'm spending time on it today, because I saw that hashtag thing. And the hashtag, these hashtag things, I don't know, they grate on me. They irritate me. And the people that believe in them irritate me. I don't know why. I guess I get frustrated at the stupidity. And I hope and pray that they're not as stupid as they seem. But I look at election results and I'm not encouraged. So just a couple more things on this, and we'll move on to something else I predicted back on January 16, 2009. I predicted, as you well know, on that date, well, I said I hoped Obama failed. But in that same monologue, I also predicted that Obama would divide this country like never before. That prediction I haven't recalled to too many people's attention, but there's a poll out today showing just how divided we are. More divided today than when Obama was immaculated. So I went back to the archives and I got the soundbite where I predicted. So that's coming up. The wrap up here of the latest with Israel and Palestine. Obama has decided to send $47 million in humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. Now, it might be useful to review why the Gaza Strip matters. This goes back to Clinton and Arafat. The Gaza Strip used to be run, owned, operated, occupied by Israel. And it was one of the many slices of territory that a previous Democrat administration forced Israel to give up. And they said, give it up. It's a hellhole anyway. You don't want to be there. Nobody does. Give it to the Palestinians and let them run it. Give them their own little plot of land and let them run it. No, you can't do that. They're going to use that as a staging base for attacks on Israel. That's exactly what has happened. The Gaza Strip is not an example of what a great culture and society can be built if the Israelis will just get out of the way. That was the dream. Let them demonstrate how they can build sewers and hospitals, and let's show the world what they're capable of. It didn't happen. It's a military staging because they're bad guys. In this conflict, they're the bad guys. From our standpoint, now we have a certain set of values and morals, and we have allies, and we believe in certain things, and those people don't. And if they take military action against us, they become bad guys. If they don't want to just peacefully coexist in their own cocoon, and they want to come out of the cocoon, they want to try to kill and punish people who disagree with them, well, they determine the rules. They become the aggressors, and they become the bad guys. Our people don't see it that way. So Barack Obama has just sent, or has agreed to send $47 million in humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. You know why? Because the Israelis are being really mean. They're killing people in Gaza Strip. That's what John Kerry was trying to sound sarcastic about when he was overheard Sunday on a Fox microphone mocking the Israelis' pinpoint operations. The Israelis are not allowed a single humanitarian or civilian casualty. Hamas lives and dies on them. Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, you name it, the Islamic Jihad, is all about civilian casualties, specifically Jewish, Israeli civilian casualty. But that's understandable because they're the oppressed minority. They're the weaker of the two. It's not fair that they shouldn't be as powerful as Israel. And so whatever they do in the face of this big threat from this evil, mean, bigger country, well, we just have to understand it. That's the perverted thinking that leftist education's inculcated in the minds of a bunch of Americans. So the Israelis, one civilian happens to get killed in an Israeli response. Gaza is where they're launching rockets into Israel, one of the places. Israel responds. And, of course, the Palestinians arrange for civilians to be killed by putting them in their military targets, converting mosques to military installations, taking over civilian neighborhoods and turning them into military compounds. It's impossible not to have civilian casualties because Hamas sets it up. And when it happens, Israel becomes the bad guy. And here comes Obama riding to the rescue, $47 million humanitarian aid to Gaza Strip, because the Israelis are not being surgical enough in their strikes. And my point is that Obama's actions tell us exactly who he is. $47 million, not to the Gaza Strip, to the Palestinian Authority. Then what does he do? Then he closes the Israeli airport. First for 24 hours, and now it's been extended. You want to isolate a country? Keep people from going there. You want to isolate a country? Make it look like if you fly there, you're going to get shot out of the sky. By who? The Palestinians? So we're going to let them, we may as well give them a medal. Hamas may as well get a medal here. They have succeeded. This is exactly one of the goals of terrorism. You frighten your enemies into living normal lives. So here comes the United States, right on schedule, banning American airline flights. Not American Airlines, all American Airlines. United, Delta, you name it, can't go in there. Can't land in Tel Aviv. Might get shut down. By who? Who's shooting at civilian airliners? Well, it's happening in Ukraine. Would Hamas do that? Well, how come they're not the bad guys then? How come nobody's condemning them? Why is it Israel's fault that American airlines can't go into Tel Aviv now? Israel is making it unsafe. Israel is threatening it by trying to defend itself. It's absurd. So here's $47 million for humanitarian aid to Palestinian Authority. It's a slush fund, make no mistake. We close the Israeli airport in Tel Aviv. Obama reaches out to the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, but he will not work with Republicans on shoring up our southern border. He will not work with a Republican governor in the state of Arizona to do the same thing, but he'll gladly send his emissaries to sit down and work with the Palestinian Authority. Obama pledges more flexibility, bending to the demands of Russia. That doesn't bother him. Whatever the Russians do, well, we'll be flexible. We've got a deal here and there. He'll shut down conservative organizations. True the Vote, other Tea Party groups trying to exercise their free speech and assembly rights here at home. He sicks the IRS now. Obama treats American citizens, certain American citizens, as a greater enemy than any foreign domestic threat we or our allies face. That's pretty forward stuff. Straightforward stuff. If you ask me. All right, brief timeout once again here at the EIB Network. We'll back after this. Don't go away. Here is Osama Hamdan. He is the Hamas spokesman. And he was interviewed by Wolf Blitzer on Situation Room on CNN yesterday. And Wolf Blitzer asked the Hamas spokesman, Osama Hamdan, are you deliberately targeting Ben Gurion International Airport?
What the Palestinians are supposed to do, to give their necks for the Israelis to slaughter them or to try to defend themselves. We were expecting that the international community will protect the Palestinians from the Israelis, will protect the Palestinians from the mentality of Netanyahu, who lost his morals and his army also, and he is reflecting a new image for Hitler and the Nazist army. They are acting in the same way, killing the Palestinians just because they are Palestinians, like what Hitler was doing in the last century.
All right, now, so folks, this has gone beyond absurd now. Here we have the modern-day Nazis. The Palestinians, Hamas, you name it, are the modern-day Nazis, where the Jews are concerned. They are the current incarnation of Adolf Hitler. It is their total hatred for Jews and their anti-Semitism that defines their existence. That's the root of the problem. It won't even be stated as such. Whenever there's anti-Semitism in America, boy, that people can't wait to point it out. They'd love to tar and feather as many anti-Semites as they could. And here you have a whole region full of them, and nobody will utter the word. That describes the ideology of the Islamic Jihad, which is anti-Semitism. Militant, vicious, bloodthirsty anti-Semitism, and this is now beyond absurd. Here you have the modern-day incarnation of the Nazis accusing the Jewish state of being a Nazist army, is what he said. He meant to say Nazi or Naziist. You have to allow for the speaking of a foreign language. But this is just absurd. And, of course, incumbent in this soundbite, the Israelis are slaughtering. The Israelis are attacking. The Israelis have lost their morals. The Israelis are reflecting a new image of Nazism. And there's Wolf Blitzer just standing there, listening to this, nodding his head. I didn't see it, so I don't know what his reaction was. But that's how ridiculous this is. Ladies and gentlemen, ancient Islamic Jihad leaders, such as the old Grand Mufti himself, met with the Nazis in World War II. They knew they held something major in common. And yet they automatically are granted victim status. It's absurd. It's beyond absurd. It's incomprehensibly stupid. It ought not be given any recognition. It ought not be given any cognizance. It ought not be given the time of day, this assertion. But that's the Hamas spokesman. And so we get a hashtag. Jews and Arabs refuse to be enemies, please. Jews and Arabs refuse to be enemies. Man, I really am a good person. You see my hashtag? I care. I wish they would all just get along. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Rush Limbaugh, as promised, Checking on the blinking yellow lights of our state-of-the-art phone system to find out who's on the other side. We'll start in Jerusalem. This is Elvin, and I really appreciate your call. Hello.
Hi there, Rush. Good to speak with you. Thank you for having my call.
Oh, you bet, sir.
I wanted to briefly just share 3 points with you, if I may. Number one, I think of people in America, and I lived there for 14 years. I was born there. I feel very much an American.
Okay, Elvin, if you could do me just slow down just a little bit to account.
Okay.
You got a cell phone connection. I want people to understand what you're saying. Slow down just a little bit.
No problem. As having been born in America and having lived in America for many years, I understand very much the American psyche. But I wanted to share with people they should understand this war that's going on between Israel and Hamas. If one excludes the moral component and just looks at it from a purely personal safety point of view, if heaven forbid something were to happen to Israel and would no longer be here to fight this enemy, the folks in America need to understand we are next. We are the great Satan, and we will have terrorism at our doorstep. And it's not only someone else's war. What's going on at the moment in Gaza is those folks are fighting America's war, and people need to realize that, because without Israel, heaven forbid,
I actually think, Elvin, I actually think that this is a great point. The second thing you said first. People, and I'm going to include the Obama administration in this, since what they do is what matters. I think they do have a bit of a superiorist view of this, as though there's something taking place way far away. No impact on us, really. They don't even view Israel as an ally. They say that because they have to, but I guarantee you this bunch does not look at it. Israel is a problem. And I'm not speaking in religious... It's ideology, folks. Israel is a problem. It's for John Kerry, and you don't pick a liberal Democrat. It's a problem. And this conflict with Hamas or the Palestinians, however it manifests itself on a day-to-day basis, it's over there. It's a thorn in our sides. It's something they've got to deal with. But they don't think it has any practical application to the United States at all. The first point you made, Elvin, is he said let's take just take the religious components out of this. Is look at it as a war between two sets of human beings. It is a devastating thing for people on both sides, and it is something that can't go on. It has to stop, and that Israel is taking on an enemy that also views us the same way. Israel is the nation daily fighting these people. And the point is, if Israel loses, forget Jew and Arab, forget liberal, if Israel loses this, then we're next. We are. He's right. We are the great Satan. We are despised and hated because it is thought that we make Israel possible. So it's not something distant and far away that has no impact on us. That is why so many of us on our side do not understand why this regime cannot possibly understand how Israel is an ally of ours. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Always interested in fairness and equality. Here at the EIB Network, this is Greg in Rochester, Minnesota, and thank you for waiting. Hello, sir.
Hello there. Are you there?
I'm right here, sir.
I'm very sorry about that. I just wanted to make the point. I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener. And this is Rochester, Minnesota. This is the home of the Mayo Clinic, just to put in a plug. Your point about, in your monologue, you said that the United States intentionally targeted civilians in the bombing of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Dresden is actually technically not correct. Historically, they were very careful to point out that they were actually bombing military targets in those cities, and because if they had been targeting civilians, that would have been considered a war crime and being against the laws of war.
Really?
Yes, because there are laws of war.
So we had a surgical nuclear strike on Hiroshima only...
Actually, there were more people killed in the firebombing of Tokyo. Over 1 million people were killed there. But they made the same statement. They're bombing the workshops there.
So you disagree with the premise. My premise is not that civilians were, quote unquote, targeted, but you bombed. You bombed civilians. You bombed and you committed acts against the civilian population of a country in order to secure victory. We didn't just attack military installations, bombing Dresden or Hiroshima or Nagasaki.
Are you familiar with the laws of war?
Well, frankly, not the ones you're talking about.
There are actually laws of war. You heard of the Geneva Convention?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the Geneva. We granted terrorists the Geneva Convention rights when they aren't deserving of it.
That's the whole point. The whole point of the laws of war is to try to prevent civilian casualties. And that's, give you examples of the laws of war. You have to wear a uniform or some openly identifiable symbol that you're a combatant. So you can tell soldiers from civilians.
When the Al Qaeda hijackers targeted the World Trade Center, what was that?
That was an act of terrorism. It was also called a war crime because they were not identified as combatants.
That was not a war crime. By the way, Japan never signed the Geneva Convention.
I know they didn't. But what I'm saying is, the reason you see some of the behavior you see in the United States and Israel also is that they're trying not to violate the laws of war. But it's impossible when you have, the combatants not wearing uniforms. You also, one of the other laws of war...
Absolutely, which is an Israeli, or rather a Palestinian or Hamas trick. My ultimate point in this is that we are tying one hand behind the back of every uniformed military personnel in our country, wherever we are, Afghanistan or Iraq, with our rules of engagement. And we're tying essentially Israel, both arms behind their back, with this requirement that they only conduct surgical strikes of military targets only, which Hamas makes impossible. And I'm just trying to contrast this with it did not used to be this way. Geneva Convention, laws of war, whatever. The fact of the matter is, in World War II, there were massive civilian casualties, and they led to victory. It's a horrible thing. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not standing up and shouting in support of this. War is a horrible thing. Nobody likes it. That's the point. The left thinks that military people are bloodthirsty, all insane generals that can't wait to start killing people. Nobody likes it. And it's precisely because there are civilian casualties involved that's at the top of the list of reasons why people don't like it. It's how wars have been won. It's just the nature of the game. There's nothing clean or surgical about it, and there never has been. And the effort to say that it can be or that it should be is disingenuous. And you can have all the rules of war you want, which are words, and you can have all the laws of war you want, which are words, but there are precise, specific definitions of victory. And you can take a look at every major conflict the world has ever seen, and you can easily discern the victors and the losers by virtue of casualties. Because at some point, the losers surrender, or they are either totally wiped out. But in no case does it happen with negotiations. In no instance does it happen with the Red Cross going in, with doctors and nurses and clean water and Doctors Without Borders and all of this other feel-good leftist claptrap. War is not clean. It's not... I think... I've always thought that this phrase, war crimes, is kind of redundant. What Hamas is doing is criminal already. the distinction between terrorism and warfare. That's another way to handcuff ourselves, in my estimation. And once again, with words. Now, I did not mean to imply that the United States set out to wipe out as many civilians as possible, Hiroshima or Nagasaki. But when you're going to nuke a city, sorry, there is inarguably one thing that's going to happen. When you start dropping bombs from countless B-17s and B-25s over Dresden, there are certain realities that are going to happen on the ground. The Germans, when they were launching their V-2s into London, there was nothing surgical about it. That was terrorism. It was also warfare. It's one of these ugly, really hard to deal with realities. But it is what it is. But it's you can't sugarcoat it. What we're doing is trying to give ourselves some kind of comfort with words that our intentions are honorable. By surgical strike this, surgical strike that. That's okay if you want to mount that as a PR campaign. But when you literally tell an ally like Israel, when you're going to punish them for Hamas civilian casualties that Hamas is responsible for, you punish your... This is so out of whack, it's so ridiculous, it's beyond the point of absurd now. It's gotten to the point of dangerous. And our caller from Jerusalem was spot on. The only thing I would disagree with him about, I think the war has already been brought to the United States. It's not just that. If Israel is wiped out, we're next. We're already in the mix. They have already launched attacks on us, and they've tried, no doubt, several times since 9/11, and there will be more. And it's not going to stop until they're defeated. Who do you know? Why was there no call to negotiate with bin Laden? Why didn't everybody demanding that Israel sit down at some peace conference table with Hamas? Why didn't we demand of ourselves do the same with bin Laden? Or his number two, al-Zawahiri? All right, because we knew it was pointless. Who now do we negotiate with Al-Qaeda to get them to stop? What do we do in Iraq? What were we doing in Afghanistan? We're trying to wipe them out, right? And we handcuff ourselves and we say, no, you can't take out any civilians, rules of engagement and so forth. We're making our own uniformed personnel sitting ducks in a lot of these places. It's absurd. See, if you're going to do war, here's the thing. I don't want to be misunderstood. I think it should always be last option, but when you commit to it, you better go all in. It is what it is. The purpose of armies, never forget this. My late friend out in Sacramento said that the purpose of armies is to kill people and break things. And it is that simple. That's exactly what happens in a war. You kill people and break things. Now, if you're going to turn your agents of killing people and breaking things into a social experimentation playground, if you're going to turn it into a laboratory experiment for equality and sameness and fairness, you deserve what you get. Because if you don't go all in for victory, you are going to lose. And that is unacceptable. As Patton said, Americans love a winner. Americans hate a loser. But that was 1940s Americans. Today we have a lot more Americans who think America's guilty just because we exist. And because of our existence and how we have used our existence. It's a sick place out there. And that's why I think you need really, really smart, brave people who understand exactly what's at stake every time this kind of policy is instituted, meaning war. It is not something that you do halfway if you're serious about it. There's another truism. The aggressor always sets the rules. You can have all the Geneva Conventions you want, and you can have all the laws you want of war and all the rules of war. If you're up against somebody in war who's breaking them, what are you going to go to court? Hey, they're cheating on the battlefield. It's not fair. You're going to be laughed off the battlefield. That's not how you deal with it. You don't go to the guidance counselor or the phys ed coach and say, hey, make them stop. You deal with what's coming at you. The aggressor in any conflict, be a bully in the backyard or a set of bullies in the schoolyard or on a battlefield, the aggressor sets the rules in every case. Look at Hitler's rules. What was the objective? Well, how are we going to stop that? There was only one way. And it wasn't with surgical anything, and it wasn't with words, and it wasn't with all this other feel-good, happy horse manure stuff. But just a hard, cold reality that John Kerry, hey, this is the 21st century. That stuff doesn't apply anymore. That's old-fashioned. Don't these people get it? Just absurd. Dangerous and absurd. And a brief timeout once again. Folks, do not go away. We'll be right back. By the way, one clarification, folks. The Geneva Convention didn't even come into play till 1949, long after World War II. There wasn't any of this handcuff rules of war, laws of war, Geneva Convention. Japan was not a signatory because there weren't any. Now, let me say one other thing about the atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I remember when I lived in Sacramento, I had a mayor out there by the name of Ann Rudin, and every anniversary she had this ceremony organized in downtown to basically apologize to the Japanese. We're sorry. And I remember I went nuts on every day that she did. What do you mean we're sorry? We meant to do everything that we did. What we apologize for what? We meant it. It was just liberals being liberals, and they wanted to assuage their guilt, and they felt so bad about it, so they had these massive apology sit-ins or whatever the hell they were on the anniversary of these. It drove me nuts because we intended to do everything. And why? There was a military reason. Well, there were two military reasons, but there was, in addition to the second military reason, was actually a deterrence factor. We knew that the Japanese were targeting a significant number of American soldiers and naval personnel, and it was them or victory. And Harry Truman said he was not going to leave them to die. The second reason, and this one is just as important, you wonder why the atom bomb has really only been used one time? Well, if you count Hiroshima and Nagasaki as one instance. We dropped those bombs to show the rest of the world, at the time, the power we had. It was a message of don't mess with us. You can only take us so far, and then we have this capability. And they haven't been used since. It's part and parcel of it. Why do you build ever more powerful, bigger warplanes such as stealth bombers, massive cargo transports? Why do you keep upgrading your nuclear arsenal? And the truthful answer is so that you never have to use it. Now, you try that bit of logic on a liberal who is predisposed to hating the military, and like most of them, thinking that our military is the focus of evil in the modern world, and our military is an agent of destabilization in the world. That's what they believe. You tell them the next time a defense budget argument comes up, no, we need to build that bomber, the Bomber X, so that we hopefully will never have to use it. Oh, come on, you're stupid. What do you mean? You want to build a bomber so you can kill people? You want to build a bomber so you can run around and oppress? No, we want to build it so we never have to use it. And eventually, after they get rid of the histrionics, they'll say, well, what in the world do you mean? Build it so you never have to use it. And it's called deterrence. As long as our enemies know and fear what we can do, they're not going to taunt us, they're not going to challenge us, and they're not going to take us on. And that's why you keep upgrading. And that's why you invest in the best defense money can buy. That's why. And then you advertise what you've got. What do you think really worked about Reagan and Star Wars, the Strategic Defense Initiative? Margaret Thatcher always said that it was that, ultimately, which caused Gorbachev and the others to give up. And it didn't even exist. We were going to build it. They knew we could. They also knew they couldn't. They were a third world country with a first world military, and they simply couldn't keep up. They knew we could. We didn't even have to build it, and it worked. That's why you do it, and that's another reason why those bombs were dropped in Japan. And they haven't been used since. That was a pretty big horror show. And those were small compared to what exists today. No, you got that wrong. That's not, no, it's the exact opposite of that. But greetings and welcome back, folks. Rush Limbaugh here on the cutting edge. Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations each and every day. And if you want to be on the program, it's 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Now, the Israelis, this has to be something that a lot of people do not know, and there's a lot of misinformation about this. The Israelis actually were forced, and do you know the Israelis are actually texting and calling Palestinians in Gaza in advance of launching response attacks? Say, look, we're firing. If you're a civilian, get the hell out of the area because we got a couple rockets we're launching here in 10 minutes. Nobody does this. The Israelis are warning civilians in advance to get out of areas where they think Hamas targets are. You've heard about the tunnels that Hamas built, that Israel is taking out in this latest conflict. Who do you think provided the concrete to build the tunnels? Israel did, but that's not what the concrete was for. The concrete was to help Palestinians and others living in the Gaza Strip to build homes. Yes, the Israelis actually provided concrete and other materials, and quite a bit of it, to help upgrade the community, if you will. And Hamas leaders took the concrete and started building these tunnels. To hide in and to move around in unseen. And Israel found out about the tunnels and has been taking them out. Now, what Hamas did was build civilian homes on top of the tunnels, making their own people the targets. Israel didn't do this. Israel is not targeting civilians in that sense. This is just... If you look at this, if you have any degree of common sense, none of what's happening makes any sense at all. It's enough to make you think you're going crazy. Because everything that is being done in this conflict is exactly wrong as it could be. And yet, John Kerry and Obama, they keep articulating, and everything they say is wrong. And Biden joins in, and he's never been right. In 40 years, he's never been right. It's just, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-blowing. You have Israel warning civilians that it's about to attack, get out of the way. And in the midst of all this, Israel's the bad guys. Israel needs to back off. Israel needs to rein it in. Israel needs to... And I'm telling you what's driving this. I don't even want to get into whether or not there's anti-Semitism at the State Department or anywhere in the regime aimed at Israel. I don't even want to go there. There may be. I know that anti-Semitism is what's driving hatred of Israel and the Jewish people as a part of Hamas. There's nothing else. And until that's dealt with, all of this is whistling in the dark. There is no peace process when one of the combatants has only one objective, and that's the death of every Jew. There's no compromise with them on that. They don't want a two-state solution. They don't want a peaceful coexistence. Their charter, the Hamas charter, calls for the elimination of Israel, the elimination of the Jews. It's right out of Mein Kampf. It's right out of the Third Reich. It's anti-Semitism. I don't know. There's no peace process possible here with that. And yet, I listen to people talk about it from the regime and from the State Department. It literally is totally dead wrong. And every day, totally dead wrong. Really, I've learned something here in the break about Marie Harf. It's Harf, the Assistant Secretary of State for Public Affairs, I think is her title. She's a spokeswoman. She's Jen Psaki's assistant. Now, you may remember, we've talked about her before. Marie Harf is the woman who was attacking Sergeant Bo Bergdahl's platoon mates for criticizing him. You remember Bergdahl was the deserter, the supposed deserter, and his platoon mates were describing what all had happened. And Harf heard about it, didn't like it, and she went on TV as a spokesman at the State Department, started ripping into his platoon mates, saying, "We here know much more than those platoon mates know. We know much more about what went on with Sergeant Bergdahl than his platoon mate." And she was mean. That's what struck me. Just arrogant, condescending, mean. It turns out this woman was once a Middle East analyst at the CIA. I said, oh, no. They just recycle these people. They just go from one place to, is that her? She's back up there. That's her, and her hair's brown today. I just saw her. Hair was she was bright blonde. I mean, she was like Jenny McCarthy blonde last time I saw her. Well, let's go to the audio soundbites, because this is another atrocity in the whole Israeli-Hamas situation. Let me ask you, folks, think back when you were in either grade school or high school. Remember that time that you opened the door to the janitor's office and saw the 40 surface-to-air missiles that were being hidden in there? You remember when that happened, when you were in school? No, obviously you don't, because there weren't any surface-to-air missiles in your school. Well, there are surface-to-air missiles being hidden by Hamas in their schools. It's one of the techniques to keep them from being found and also to prevent them from being targeted. So Tuesday, at the State Department, the deputy spokesperson Marie Harf held a daily press briefing, and during the Q&A, a State Department correspondent for somebody, Matthew Lee is his name, said, look, I asked you a question yesterday about the rockets that they found in this school, and if you knew what they did with them after they found them. Now, apparently, there had been some more rockets, some more missiles found today. Do you have an answer to the question? Let me tell you what the answer to the question is before you hear. When they found the rockets and the missiles in the schools, our State Department demanded they be given back to Hamas, as though somebody had stolen them and misplaced them. And that's what she's being asked about here. So here's we have 3 bites. This is the first. Here's her answer.
UNRWA has told us that they asked the local police to remove the rockets from the school. We recognize that this was not an acceptable outcome, and we are consulting closely with UN leadership, with UNRWA, the Israeli government, and the Palestinian Authority to develop better options available in the event of future incidents.
Well, is it your understanding that by local police, that was Hamas?
I think
right?
they can better speak to who specifically in the local police.
If you say it was if the outcome was not acceptable, it would appear that UNRWA gave these missiles back to their owners.
They have told us
Hamas.
they went to the local police.
The reporter's right. The local police are Hamas. Hamas is everything there. And so here's this. Look, I know this is unfair. It's just part of my effort to get people to see a liberal when there's a liberal, and have that mean something. And this is a classic case of it, folks. Marie Harf is a classic case of it. She may be perfectly nice, but I guarantee she's wrong about everything. And this is just now a cover up. So they found these rockets, and we worked with the UN to give them back. We may as well not have even found them. It doesn't matter. It's just a circuitous route back to the owners, which are Hamas. But this whole thing is an exercise in trying to fool people. Well, what happened was we recognized this was not an acceptable outcome. Really, thank you. It's not acceptable to have rockets and missiles in a school. Thank you. We recognize this is not an acceptable outcome. And we are consulting closely with the UN and the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority to develop better options available in the event of future. So the next time we find guns and rockets in a school, we're going to do even better. This is the norm in areas. Reported, wait a minute now, you're understanding that by local police that was Hamas. Well, I think they can better speak to who specifically to local. Don't look to me, pal, to indict Hamas. That's not what we in the Obama administration are here to do. We're not going to blame Hamas for anything. We're going to blame Israel, but we're not going to blame Hamas. Don't try to trick me. That's what she's saying. And the reporter said, well, it would appear that then the UN gave the missiles back to their owners, back to Hamas. And Marie Harf says, they have told us that they went to the local police. Like, what do you not understand, dude? It's perfectly to the local police. What do you not get about it, huh? So then the correspondent Matthew Lee said, okay, so after this happened, the secretary, meaning Kerry, who served in Vietnam, by the way, the secretary and people with the secretary in Cairo announced an additional big package of aid, including $15 million to Hamas.
Which is an organization that does very important work in terms of the humanitarian situation, not just in Gaza, but elsewhere.
I understand, but can you see how to an outside observer, this sounds a bit bizarre?
Well, maybe to an outside observer who doesn't have all the facts or understand the details here.
The facts are pretty clear. UNRWA discovers rockets in its school. It condemns it, informs the UN, obviously, and then hands them back over to the people who are shooting them into Israel.
Well, let's not make sweeping generalizations. They've told us they gave them to the local police.
Well, but the local police in Gaza are Hamas.
Do you believe this, folks? Well, maybe to an outsider, they wouldn't be understood, who doesn't have all the facts or understand the details like we do. Okay, well, the facts are pretty clear. They discovered the missiles, the rockets in the school. They condemn it, inform the UN, and then hands them back over to the people who are shooting them into Israel. In other words, good guys captured rockets. They should have been taken out of the country. Instead, they were given back. This would be like discovering some V2 rocket battery in Germany and say, oops, these are Hitler's. We shouldn't have found these, and then take them back to Berlin or something. That's what's going on here, and that's what she's excusing. That's what she's explaining. And she's trying to draw a distinction. Well, no. These were given to the local police. Gaza. Local. There aren't any police in Gaza. And then there's one more. This is Matthew Lee continuing here, beating his head against a wall. If you say, Ms. Harf, it was unacceptable, I'm assuming that it was unacceptable, but you still ended up giving the missiles back.
I do tend to mean what I say, yes.
Exactly. You say it's unacceptable, but you won't say why it's unacceptable, right?
I don't have more for you than
Okay.
that.
So, but then you go ahead and announce another $15 million to this very organization.
Because it's an important organization.
I understand.
Those two things aren't mutually exclusive.
Maybe
UNRWA is operating in a very difficult situation, in a difficult environment, and they aren't, to be frank here, equipped to deal with discovering rockets in a school where they were working humanitarianly. So, again, this wasn't a good outcome. We certainly don't think it was, but I would caution people from jumping to conclusions about, what UNRWA was trying to do here.
What a humanitarian group automatically is assumed to be a bunch of good guys, number one. Number two, a humanitarian group finds rockets and doesn't know what to do with them. Well, you're operating in a very difficult situation, a difficult environment. And let's be frank here. They're not equipped to deal with discovering rockets in a school when they're working in a humanitarian. Why not? Why is working so-called humanitarian issues somehow, why does it render you impotent when you discover rockets and missiles in a school? By the way, I'm very sorry. The group that she was talking about, she was pronouncing it UNRWA. It's the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA. That's who she was talking about. I mistakenly thought I'd identified them in the first soundbite, and I had not. So that's who Marie Harf was talking about, the group that discovered the rockets. They were a UN group, and they had no idea what to do. I mean, they're a humanitarian group. We need to give them $15 million more because of the really important work that they're doing, discovering rockets in schools. Okay, so try this in the New York Times. And I got a whole stack of this stuff. And I told you, I warned everybody back on March the 3rd, 16 days ago. I predicted it. I warned everybody. It wasn't hard to do. Many people could have made the prediction. Few did. And you'll hear it coming up. But try this. Benjamin Netanyahu's victory appears, this is the New York Times, Benjamin Netanyahu's victory appears to have dashed any hopes that President Obama might have had for a way out of his tumultuous and often bitter relationship with the leader. Are you kidding me? So we are being told here in the New York Times that a foreign leader of an allied nation winning his own election justifies disrespect from the President of the United States. That Benjamin Netanyahu winning is an act of insolence against our dear leader. And next thing you know, Obama's going to be suggesting mandatory voting. Oh, wait, he did. You didn't know that? He did in Cleveland. Mandatory voting. Greetings, my friends, and welcome Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network, and the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. I've got stories like this all over the place. Obama to punish Jews at United Nations for re-electing Netanyahu. That is from Foreign Policy. From the Weekly Standard, White House, Bibi's election undermines democratic ideals. That is what they're telling the media at the White House, that Netanyahu winning a free and open election in his own country undermines democratic ideals. Folks, I'm telling you, we're on the precipice, I think, of real danger here. These next 2 years, there are no impediments. There's nothing stopping. And this stuff is really, really scary. This is the stuff that Saturday Night Live skits are made of. Except this is as real, isn't it? We have the leader of the free world, Barack Obama, the president of the United States, actually now planning on going to the United Nations to undermine our ally, Israel, in favor of our enemy, Iran. And I would dare say our other enemies, Hamas and Hezbollah. This is unbelievable. And the media right in there reporting this stuff. How dare Netanyahu disrespect Obama like this by winning? How dare he? Who does he think he is, winning his own election, when everybody knows Obama did not want him to? And so now that the people of Israel have elected Netanyahu, and of course there's racism Oh, yes, despite everybody in the Middle East is the same race. They're all Semites. I'm talking race. They're all Semites. I mean, how in the hell do you have racism in Israel when talking about Israeli Arabs versus Israeli? They're all Semites, for crying out loud. Not saying the same religion, obviously. But this is uncanny. From the Politico, Israel's shield no more. Obama is so ticked off. He's being so petulant. Like a spoiled, rotten little kid, he's vowing not to protect Israel anymore at the United Nations in the Security Council. Because they had the audacity to re-elect Benjamin Netanyahu. Obama is taking this as a personal slap in the face. AP, Netanyahu win dashes prospect for a thaw with Obama. So the only way American-Israeli relations were going to advance is if Netanyahu lost. But Netanyahu won, and that is considered a personal insult, an act of insolence against Barack Hussein O. And this Weekly Standard headline again, White House, Bibi's election undermines Democrat ideals. We just had democracy on display in Israel. That was a free and open democratic election. But somehow the wrong guy won, according to Obama and the United States administration, and therefore, since they didn't get the result they want, democratic ideals have been undermined. I want to take you back March 3rd. This is what I said. This is after Netanyahu's speech. And I predicted that Obama would react as a spoiled, rotten little kid and would double down on everything he's trying to do with Iran in a fit of pique, childish anger at Netanyahu for daring to accept Bader's invitation to speak to a joint session of Congress. When Obama thinks he's been embarrassed, when Obama thinks he's been shown up, doubles down on revenge. Oh, you don't like this deal? Oh, you think I don't know what I'm doing? Oh, you think that you can come to my country and tell me how it's going to be? Well, watch this. And bammo, fast-track the deal and make it even worse than it is. And it looks like that's exactly what's happening. Obama is pledging to remove sanctions. Get this. Obama is suggesting that he's going to remove sanctions from Iran and put them on Israel. I have it right here in my stack of stuff that the administration is considering sanctions on Israel. Here's Major Garrett. This morning on CBS this morning, he had a report about Obama's plans for helping the Palestinians now that Netanyahu has said they're not going to get their own state since he won re-election.
President Obama has ordered his top advisors to seek alternatives to direct talks between the Israelis and Palestinians. The leading option for the White House, and one that would amount to a significant reversal of American policy, would be to allow the United Nations Security Council to pass a resolution recognizing a Palestinian state. The White House has worked with Israel in the past to block such maneuvers, arguing it would unnecessarily inflame Israeli political passions and undermine a fragile peace process. Letting the United Nations Security Council proceed now appears to be a live option.
And there is no peace process. There's a peace industry, but there is no peace process. Actually, a process is what it is. That's all it is. It's a process. Nothing ever happens in it except it processes itself. It just keeps processing. And the process keeps recycling. It's become an industry. But now Obama is going to go to the United Nations Security Council to get Palestinian statehood, and he is going to block the Israeli vote opposed to it, overcome it, with since he refuses to work with Netanyahu. What this means is Netanyahu won, so we're done. We're out of it. We're finished working with Israel. We just can't. They're a bunch of racist pigs. That's what Obama says. That's what the regime is saying. Well, they played the race card, accusing Netanyahu and the campaign of his of playing the race card in order to win the election, which is patently absurd. But since Netanyahu won, we're through. We're done. Israel It's been fun while it lasted, but we'll see you at the Security Council. We actually, the United States of America now appears to be changing policy such a way that the objective is to undermine Israel and promote Iran and its related affiliates, Hamas, Hezbollah, Bashar al-Assad, Putin, whoever the hell else. Ron Fournier took a break from being worried about Hillary and is now worried about Obama. It's on CNN's New Day today during Inside Politics. And the question came from Julie Pace. The U.S. has vowed to use its veto power at the Security Council, vowed to block any efforts there. But now they're saying it's possible we could ease up and try to let them get statehood, the Palestinians, that way. Do it at the Security Council while undermining our ally Israel. What do you think of that, Ron?
Israel's enemies, whatever you want to say about Bibi, they're playing for keeps. And the U.S. is going to be playing with fire if they're going to play these kind of games in the UN. I am not a big fan of Bibi. I think the administration has every reason to be upset with him. But somebody's got to be the adult in the room in this relationship. And somebody's got to reach out and say, how do we put this back together and have peace talks again and have a decent relationship? We can't have our White House acting just as petulant as Bibi.
How is Bibi acting petulant? What in the world is going on? We're living in a twilight zone here. Bibi's acting petulant. All he did was win an election. Is this some grand act of insolence and disrespect? No, look, I know what they're talking about, what they can't abide. And I'm not trying to hide behind it. I'm trying to ignore it. I'll tell you what it is. They think, people like this, Fournier, the media, the Obama administration, they think that Netanyahu pulled out his Tea Party membership card and threw down the race card against the Arabs. And you might be saying, well, how did they do that? Well, according to these people, the way Bibi played the race card was at the last minute when the polls made it look nip and tuck, when the polls made it look like Netanyahu might lose. I mean, the media made everybody think that Netanyahu was on his last legs, and that, of course, created in Netanyahu a sense of, well, I've got to put out all the stops. So in order to secure turnout of his base, he pledged that he would oppose a two-state solution with a Palestinian state because he understands that the two-state solution is not a two-state solution. The Palestinians do not want two states. The Palestinians want their state and bye-bye Israel. There is no such thing as a two-state solution. Israel, Bibi, had to go along with this for years. It's what the U.S. demanded. You better be for a two-state solution or we're going to deny you the money. You better do this, you better do that. And so they went along with it. Netanyahu on the, ostensibly, I mean, look at, I think Obama and his buddies only have themselves to blame for this. They're the ones who put out a bunch of phony polling data that made it look like Netanyahu was going to lose. They're the ones that had all the media and all the polling data and all the news stories before the election saying it was essentially over, that Herzog was going to win, that Netanyahu was going to lose. So if you're Netanyahu and you're consuming the news like everybody else does and you're seeing that you're losing in pre-election polls, you might lose the turnout. What do? You do what every politician in the world does. You try to get out your base. You try to turn out the vote. So Netanyahu speaks from the heart and says, you know what, there isn't going to be a Palestinian state if I'm reelected. He came to his senses. There's no such thing as a two-state solution. That is considered playing the race card. And I know you're saying, wait a minute, Rush, how is Netanyahu avowing that there will not be a Palestinian state playing the race card? Well, because you see, it's racist not to let the poor Palestinians have their own country. Yes, it's very, very racist. Now, why? No, because the Palestinians are the minority, and they're people of color. But wait, so are the Israelis. They're all Semites. Yes, but you're not supposed to look at it that way. You're supposed to see the Israelis as the white Koch brothers in Israel, and you're supposed to see the Palestinians as the blacks in Ferguson, Missouri. That's the construct. And so the Koch brothers pulled out all the stops and said they're going to do everything they can to make sure the gentle giant doesn't get away with framing the cop. And that's playing the race card. Because you see, Netanyahu had to fight what he was being told was going to be a massive Arab turnout. There are a lot of Arabs that live in Israel peacefully. They've got everything they want there. I guarantee you, if you've never been to Israel, and if you go, the biggest shock you're going to get, you're going to see so many Arabs walking around, and you're going to, wait a minute. I thought the Israelis hated the Arabs. I thought, what? Yeah. Because you've been fed a bunch of lies about the nation of Israel and how it conducts itself. There is an entire Arab quarter, Jerusalem. They run around, they're free as they can be. They're more free. The women Arabs, female Arabs in Israel are more free than they are in other countries in the Middle East. They have access to everything. They're not denied. They're not discriminated against. You'd be shocked if you were to get off the plane and start walking that country, driving that country. You'd be stunned, particularly in Jerusalem. Anyway, Netanyahu was accused of playing the race card by promising there wouldn't be a Palestinian state. He was trying to counter what the media was telling him was going to be this massive Israeli Arab turnout at the polls. 1.7 million is the Arab population in Israel, and 50 to 75% of them voted in the last election, so it's a big turnout, so you got to counter it. And the Democrats, just like they're playing a race card in this stupid, what's her name, Lynch? Loretta Lynch, the Democrats are playing the race card on her, on the Republicans on her, claiming they're putting her nomination at the back of the bus. She's the nominee to replace Holder. And the Democrats are running around, led by Dick Durbin, claiming the Republicans are playing the race card here, when in fact not a single Democrat voted for Condoleezza Rice for Secretary of State. Not a one of them. Yeah, and Durbin led the fight against Janice Rogers Brown as a black conservative. But anyway, there's some theory that when you start throwing the race card on everything, it's a sign you're losing. For the Democrats, it's worked. And so they're trying to infect Israeli politics with American politics. The regime doing this, accusing Netanyahu of the race card. But anyway, bottom line is Netanyahu wins. That's the end of our relationship with Israel. Out an act of insolence. How dare they? How dare those Israelis disrespect their dear leader? Greetings. Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, Cutting Edge Societal Evolution. Let me see if I get this straight. The Obama administration and the American media can spend money and run campaign ads designed to turn out the Israeli Arab vote. And that's not racist. No. That's perfectly fine. But then Netanyahu coming along and his allies pointing out that Obama and the Democrats in the media have targeted the Arabs and therefore trying to get his own base to turn out, that's racist? How can Netanyahu responding to what the Democrats are doing be considered racism and what the Democrats are doing not be racism? This has been out of hand for I don't know how long. The Democrats throwing down the race card and getting away with it because there's too much fear in retaliating to it against it. There's too much fear. Everybody's frightened in the elected political class to do something about this. But it's long been out of hand. It's perverse. It's destructive. There's nothing positive or uplifting or inspiring about any of this. Contrary to the claims, Democrat, but they're the ones that started all that. They're the ones that targeted money and ads to turn out the Arab vote. Never once did anybody think that was racist. So Benjamin Netanyahu responds to it by pointing out the left is targeting the Arab vote and trying to get his base to turn out to counter that. And all of a sudden that becomes racism? When it's all the same race. The Middle East anyway. It's all Semitic. Anyway, I got to take a brief time out. Thomas Loopy Friedman talking about this racism. It's sickening in a minute. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Rush Limbaugh, America's real anchorman and truth detector and doctor of democracy. And having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have all at the same time. It's 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Here's Thomas Loopy Friedman, the New York Times. This really is absurd. This is alternate universe. This is two different worlds in which people live. The idea that anybody, that racism was a factor in the Israeli election, the very idea is flat out absurd. But you see, the Democrats can never lose on the merits. No. And Barack Obama can never actually be rejected by people either here or in Israel. No, there has to be some explanation when he loses. And it can't have anything to do with his policies. It can't have anything to do with his meddling. My guess is that a bunch of Israelis were fed up. The American president interloping in their country, trying to ambush an election, influence it, for his own personal desires, not the United States' best interests, and certainly not Israel's. Obama injected himself into that election for his own personal reasons, whatever the heck they are. There had to be some Israeli backlash to that. Probably not as much as you'd think, but there had to be some. But it doesn't matter. On any given day, the Democrats never lose. They either have tricks played against them, somebody cheated, or the race card was used. Or the war on women took an unexpected turn, or some such thing. And then their allies pick up the ball and run with it. I'm going to ask you a question that I asked you yesterday. Have you ever stopped to think in this whole Middle East peace process, and remember, that's all it is. It's a process that never ends. It's a process that recycles and repeats. It's a chess game. And the game never is won or lost. The pieces keep being moved around by different players, depending on the American administration and the Israeli prime minister. And whoever's running the show at the PLO or Fatah or whatever they call themselves on any given day. Hamas, Hezbollah, you name it. The Middle East peace process is an industry unto itself. It's not designed to be resolved. The Middle East peace process does not have an achievable objective. We're all being lied to about this. We're all being strung along. We're all being roped in thinking for my whole life. There's been no change in it. When we're all roped into believing that there's a solution to this with words. With the right people, doctors, nurses, clean water, whatever, speeches, you name it, there aren't any such solutions. And there never are to conflicts like this. Ours is a world governed by the aggressive use of force, not by the aggressive use of process. And this is made especially and abundantly clear in this case because there is no such thing as a two-state solution. I don't know how much time you out there as individuals pay attention to the Middle East peace process. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't pay much attention at all, because it never changes. It's the same thing. The news on the Middle East peace process does not change from administration to administration, from person to person, from year to year. Oh, you might have changes that appear to be different, like this two-state solution business, or when the Israelis finally decide to accept the idea of a Palestinian state. But then, whenever something like that, which some people would consider progress, is made, guess who undermines it? Hello, Yasser Arafat. Hello, whoever is running the show in negotiations against the Israelis, because they do not want a two-state solution. There is no two-state solution. There's a one-state solution. The two-state solution actually means the end of Israel. Go take a look at the Hezbollah charter. Take a look at things stated by Yasser Arafat when he was around. Doesn't matter who. You'll say, take a look at the Iranian caliphate. I mean, you'll no matter where you go, the objective is wiping out the Jewish state. It doesn't exist anymore, and neither do the people who at present live in it. That's the objective. That's the only objective. There is no desire to live side by side in peace and tranquility and mutual respect and all of that. There is no such possibility resulting from negotiations. Just never going to happen. And I dare say the people involved in it know it. But the Middle East peace process has become a career. The Middle East peace process is something that when you're 15, you just say, I want to work there. I want to work there for life. I want to become a diplomat, work at the Middle East peace process. I want to be a career appointee to the Middle East peace process so that I'm there no matter who the American administration is, president is. This whole thing is a joke. What makes it obviate the two-state solution? Well, the demand for right of return. Right of return is incumbent on a two-state solution. Right of return means that anybody who wants to call themselves a Palestinian anywhere in the world has the right to come back to whatever they designate as the Palestinian state. And by the way, the Palestinian state is going to be what Israel is now, or there's never going to be a deal. And who's going to make that deal? Who in Israel is going to negotiate the end of the nation? Now that I ask that, I can see that could happen if you elect the wrong Israeli leftists. Israeli leftists are the equivalent of the current Republican leadership in this country, just as the current Republican leadership scared to death of the Democrats, scared to death of the media. The Israeli left is scared to death of Iran. And everything you hear about the Republican leadership not criticizing Obama, we don't want to provoke him. We don't want to make him mad. We don't want to anger the independents. We don't want to turn away the independents. We don't want anybody getting mad at us. We don't want the media criticizing. Same thing. The Israeli left, same way, except their objective is placating Iran. They're neophytes who believe that these people can be appeased. The right of return eliminates any possibility of a two-state solution or existence. Besides that, none of the militant Arab population wants a state of Israel. So all this is academic, is my point. Obama inserts himself in this process. He makes it in the internal affairs of Israel. He inserts himself personally and professionally. Throws down this notion of the race card. He starts the whole thing with the race card. Bibi responds to it, and then Bibi's accused as the only one of playing the race card. But I need to ask you, do you ever wonder why the Democrat Party in this country, whoever, be it Bill Clinton, be it Barack Obama, be it John Kerry, I don't care, be it Dianne Feinstein, I don't care, pick one. Why are their allies the Palestinians? And why are the Israelis, which is the ally of the United States, why are the Israelis tied, at least at present with Netanyahu as the prime minister, to the conservative or Republican Party? Why is that? That's more understandable. Shared values, foreign and domestic, same worldview, same Western civilization roots. But why? No matter what Democrat you mention, no matter what Democrat's ever in the White House or whatever Democrat Secretary of State, whatever Democrat ends up anywhere, why are they always simpatico with the Palestinians? And there is an answer to the question. And without going into it in great detail, it's no more complicated. I mean, there is ideology involved. There's a common ground. Leftists will find their friends anywhere around the world. They do not have to be American. They do not have to be domestic in any way. But aside from the ideological commonalities, there are ideological commonalities, and there are some between the Palestinians and the Democrat Party. When I say Hamas, Hezbollah, there's another reason for it. And that is, they feel sorry for him. They feel sorry for him like they feel sorry for the African-American population in America. They actually look at the Palestinians and they see a bunch of people worthy of pity. Oh, these poor guys, look at them. Nobody wants them. They're outcasts. They can't get along with anybody. And they look at the Israelis as the big, evil, white, even though they're not, majority. Israel is the equivalent of the biggest enemy that the Democrats can muster in American conservatism or in the American Republican Party. And it's really no more complicated than that. Well, it is, actually, because there is ideological common ground as well between the enemies of Israel and the Democrat Party in this country. But in large part, it's really no more complicated than the evil tyranny of a majority. And the poor, helpless, put upon, discriminated against minority and people of color. And as such, the Democrats look upon these minorities not with respect, they look upon them with pity and the bigotry of low expectations. They're people that can't do anything on their own. They're people who can't survive on their own. They're poor people, they're just incompetent and inept. And they need a champion. They need somebody speaking up for them. They need somebody defending them. The Democrats rush to the cause, make themselves look big and magnanimous, and there's something magic about always opposing the majority, even when you're it. You disguise the fact that you're the majority, you blame others for being the majority, and you rip them to shreds every day just because they are. And just because they're majority, they're intrinsically corrupt. They're automatically cheating. They're automatically corrupt. They're automatically ingrates because they are the majority. And as such, they're incapable of being sympathized. They're incapable of anybody having empathy for them because they're just evil. And in the liberal worldview, it does not really require any more detail than that, but there is. There are other reasons to explain why the Democrat Party, the American left, is simpatico with the enemies of Israel. But I got to take a time out now, my friends, as the time keeps just ticking on by, but we'll be right back. Don't go away. Here's Thomas Loopy Friedman. This is last night on CNN's Erin Burnett Out Front. Her question was, you wrote today, Sir Thomas, that Benjamin Netanyahu went for the gutter with the comment to supporters that Arab voters were coming out to vote in huge numbers. Would you please explain that to us, Mr. Friedman? How can that be Netanyahu going for the gutter?
Netanyahu, to save himself, took votes from even farther right parties. And now he is saddled with the way he did that, this kind of race baiting, and at the same time with throwing out the window of his election bus the whole notion of a two-state solution. The people who are happiest tonight, who are high-fiving and toasting themselves with endless Allahu Akbars, is the Iranian regime in Tehran. Iran wants a one-state solution, so there is a constant grinding between Israeli settlers and Palestinians. Nothing makes Iran happier than Israel opting for a one-state solution.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, that is just flat out wrong. It is dangerously wrong. It is arrogantly misinformed. And this guy is the Bible to everybody who reads the New York Times. In terms of foreign policy, Thomas Friedman is the Bible. And this is dangerously, embarrassingly, every bit of it wrong. There never will be a two-state solution. If people are living in dreamland, they have no concept of the dynamics of anything that they do. Just like when they raise taxes, they don't understand when people are able to avoid it. They don't understand when people try to find ways not to pay the new taxes. There's never going to be a two-state solution because the Palestinians do not want that. And how anybody with even one half the IQ of a pencil eraser doesn't understand that is literally beyond me. And then we hear this other bromide here. Well, he took votes from even further right. So? They were registered to vote. So what, where they came from? What makes them so evil that they are further right? How does that matter? Where does further right equal evil? Except in this man's upside-down world. But that's not even the point. The race baiting? The race baiting, if anybody race baited, it's Barack Obama and whoever ran that campaign for him over there. They are the ones who pointed out the need to turn out the Arab-Israeli vote. And by the way, what is racist about that? There is no racism in this. Only in the convoluted, upside-down world of liberalism can people of the same race be somehow tagged as racial minorities. It's inexplicable. So race baiting, when the first people that did it were people that are Friedman's allies. The first thing, they run all these fraudulent polls telling everybody Netanyahu's going to lose. And then they run all these stories claiming they're going to really turn out the Arab-Israeli vote. Well, that's no different than turning out minority votes in this country. The opposition party is going to do something to counter it. It's called free and open elections. It's called campaigning. Except when the left comments on it somehow. If you don't just sit there and let them beat you, if you don't just sit there and give up and let them beat you, you're engaging in racism. It's sick. Well, another exciting hour of broadcast excellence in the can, and on the way over, hermetically sealed to the Limbaugh Broadcast Museum, the virtual museum at rushlimbaugh.com. We have a brief break here at the top, an obscene profit timeout, and then coming right back, folks, so don't go anywhere, back before you know it. In fact, it's not even a one-state solution that the Palestinians want. It's not a one-state solution the Iranians want. I'm picking up where I left off because I got offended. I was interrupted. But I couldn't do anything about it. What we're talking about here is a final solution. And the final solution is there is no Israel and there are no Jews living where Israel is now. And that's the objective. And this is never going to get solved from the Palestinian side, from the Iranian side, from the Arab side, till that happens. Pure and simple. If that ever happens, you've got a solution. And how are they going to do that, folks? How's that solution? If that were to happen, how is there no Israel? And how are there no Jews living on the land that is now Israel? How does that happen? You think somebody's going to negotiate that? You think somebody's going to come along in the Middle East peace process and agree to that? You think the United Nations is going to pass a Security Council resolution everybody's going to vote for that wipes Israel as it exists off the map and puts the Jews that live there somewhere else? Preferably in the Mediterranean is what the Palestinians want. Do you think that's going to happen? That hasn't an iota of a chance happening unless there is a military conflict that Israel would lose. Which is how conflicts like this have traditionally been solved throughout human history. So what is this two-state, one-state, all this? That's why Thomas Loopy Friedman here, this is idiotic. I can't believe that. Well, yes, I can. Because the process to them, this is all that matters, is the process itself. The fact that it never solves anything is part and parcel of it. The process is where you get to show how smart you are. The process is where you get to demonstrate your brain power. The process is where you get to demonstrate where your allegiances lie. The process is where you get to identify who the bad guys are and who the good guys are so that you can be a good guy. The process is where you get to identify racism and bigotry and sexism all over the place. The process is whereby you establish your credentials as some sort of expert. The process is meaningless. The process is worthless in terms of its stated objective, and that's a solution, because there is no solution except a final solution. Now, the Israelis would be fine and dandy with a negotiated Palestinian state except they know that that's not what the Palestinians really want. And therefore, how do you negotiate seriously when you know what they claim to want isn't true? When their stated objectives are not what their real objectives are? When you know what their objectives are your elimination. And so it's insolence, it's disrespect to the American president, Barack Obama, when you stand up for your own nation's existence. It's insolence, it's disrespect when you dare to win your own election. The opposition, by the way, being aided and assisted by Barack Obama. And let's remember, once again, spending money, targeting other resources, running campaign ads to turn out the Arab vote in the Israeli election. That was the American Democrat Party. That was the American President, Barack Obama. That's the advice that the Herzog campaign got. That's how the money that was spent over there, American money, was spent. Targeting objectives, resources, and running campaign ads at Israeli Arabs designed to get them to turn out and vote. But that wasn't racist. In the magic of Democrat Party politics, that wasn't racist. To target ads and resources at Arab Israelis. Whoa, there's no racism in that. Don't you dare accuse us of racism. But Netanyahu and the Likud party responding to it, defending against it, somehow is racist. This stuff has to stop. This is nothing but pure destructive. There's nothing inspiring. There's nothing uplifting. There's no good that comes of this. And then these brainiacs like Thomas Loopy Friedman toss in their 5 cents and tack on with their, oh, yeah, he kind of race-baited there, Netanyahu. Yeah, he race-baited. How in the hell, again, when everybody there is of the same race, how do you race-bait? Anyway, and then Netanyahu committed the real offense. He went out and he appealed to the even farther right parties. Oh, that's really low. That's really the scum of the earth, those further right parties. We can't put up with that. And then after all of this, Obama still lost in a landslide. And so there's going to be a price for this. And that price is going to be, we are going to abandon Israel at the UN, and we are going to assist the Iranians. We may put sanctions on Israel now and lift them on Iran. I mean, this is... Imagine Eddie Haskell with nuclear weapons, and the beaver keeps beating him. That's what we're looking at here. We've got a man-child, an immature child, spoiled brat who's had his way his whole life, been treated as something special his whole life, and his life recently is a series of humiliations, from losing the automatic bid for Chicago to get the Olympics. I could go down a list of things that were supposed to be slam dunks that Obama has lost, and this is just the last straw. And so now everybody's going to pay for this act of insolence. I think I'm watching Game of Thrones here. And the 15-year-old king wants to start chopping off heads. And everybody's afraid to say no to the 15-year-old king because it might be their head that gets chopped off. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is doing everything he can to save his state, to save his country, to save his people. Even people in Israel who don't like him miss this, but that's what his objective is. But I'm telling you, don't fall for this two-state, one-state solution. It's the final solution. By the way, one of the biggest jokes here in Friedman's comment is that the Iranians are sitting over there giving themselves a bunch of high fives, as in Allahu Akbars. That I'd like to see. I'd like to see the mullahs high-fiving each other wherever they live. Hey, Ayatollah Khamenei, High five me, buddy. Allahu Akbar. I can just see this. This is the picture that Friedman paints. And that they're happy about this. They're happy, Netanyahu. Well, of course they're happy, because they want a one-state solution. What one-state solution is he talking about? What one-state solution would make the mullahs in Iran happy? How are the mullahs in Iran kept happy with Netanyahu winning? The only way that makes sense is if the mullahs in Iran know that the Middle East peace process has no end, by definition and by design. And it doesn't. You know why? They need an enemy. They need, just like the Democrat Party needs a demon, needs an enemy, needs a villain, so do those guys. And Israel is made to order. Israel can never, ever be allowed to participate in a solution, because Israel's the bad guys. They can't ever do anything good. They can't ever do anything noteworthy. They can't ever do anything laudatory. That would blow everything sky high. The Israelis must always remain the bad guys, and as such, there will never, ever be a solution until they get their nuke. And then look out. And that is what Netanyahu knows. And anybody with common sense knows. And it doesn't take much common sense. All it takes is the courage to believe what the Iranians have told everybody. From Mahmoud Ahmadinejad to the Ayatollah Khomeini to the Ayatollah Khamenei, to the whatever Ayatollah, whatever mullah, whoever you want to talk to. That's their stated objective. ISIS, you name it. That's their objective. And that, the elimination of Israel and the expulsion of the Jews from that real estate, that is the objective, and that is the only solution they're interested in, and that is the final solution. It's not a one-state, it's not a two-state, it's the final. And nothing short of that will ever be acceptable. Okay. To the phones, finally, as promised, is Michael in Washington. I'm glad you waited. I really do appreciate your patience. Thank you. Hello.
Hello, Rush. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you, sir.
It's interesting that they're looking at the Israeli election as being something that is pointing towards some sort of racism. But why isn't it racist that there's no democratic elections in any of the surrounding Arab countries? All of those Arabs are denied the right to vote. And even in the Palestinian territories, they haven't had an election in 10 years.
Exactly. That's my whole point. The Arab Israeli population has more freedom and liberty than they have any other country in the Middle East. And they're allowed to participate in Israeli elections. And somehow, you nailed it. Somehow that's racist. It's absurd on its face. No, that's a great point you're making out there, and I thank you for getting through and making it.
Well, you're welcome.
Well, I'm glad you're out there, because that's, again, if you ever do go to Israel, and I imagine a lot of people would probably not go because they think it's too unstable, terrorism happening left and right, suicide bombers and all that. It's worth going. And I'm telling you, so many things would shock you. If all you think you know of Israel is what you've been told by the American political media, you're in for surprise after surprise after surprise. Because one of the things you probably believe is the Israelis hate the Arabs, and they're intolerant, and they don't accept them, and they don't want any part of them. And you get to Israel, Jerusalem, and you see happy, content Arab population, and they're running around, and they're living there. They have access to everything the nation provides any other citizen. They have total freedom. They participate in Israeli elections. It's one of the biggest surprises anybody getting off the plane in Israel will discover if all they know of Israel is what they've been told as part of their consuming of news in this country, or the BBC, anywhere, Western news media, doesn't matter. Here's Christopher Manhattan. Great that you called, sir. Great to have you here, too. Hello.
Hi, Rush. It's great to talk to you. You do such a wonderful service.
Well, thank you.
Yesterday we were talking about the bomb in Iran, getting the bomb. I don't see why they would use the bomb against Israel because they'd wipe themselves out. I'd be more worried about them using a nuclear weapon against somebody that supported Israel.
Meaning the United States.
Or, well, okay, meaning the United States. I mean, I'm more worried about terrorism than a bomb going off in my backyard in Manhattan.
Well, that can happen now. Iranian-sponsored. They don't need to acquire a nuclear weapon for that to happen.
Right, but why would Iran bomb Israel? Why would they pee in their own well if they have to drink out of it? Well, I mean, they couldn't destroy Israel without destroying themselves in the immediate area within a nuclear weapon.
Theoretically, yeah. People are just going on what they've said. They've vowed to do it. I think if you know the story of the 12th Imam?
No.
Well, the 12th Imam basically is their version of the apocalypse. And they bring that about by destroying Israel. And they die, too.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if they're going to do it that way, then yes, it makes perfect sense. I'm not
the end of the world.
A bomb. I just wonder why they'd use it and blow themselves up, too.
Well, if they think that's what's called for in their own religious teachings, if they don't expect to survive it, if the glory is the destruction of the enemy, which enables, dare I say, the equivalent Antichrist to show up, you got to take a look at. That's why I take these people. See, when they say this, Hitler told everybody what he was going to do, and these guys, the militant Islamists, have made no bones about it. I think it's risky to run around. They're just huffing. They don't mean that. They would never. Don't even. They're just trying to intimidate. They're just trying to make themselves look like. I think it's risky not to take them at their word. Yeah, they're beheading people. They're lighting people on fire. They're wiping out. And the real offense, according to Wolf Blitzer, they're obliterating museum artifacts. Can you believe that? I mean, beheading people is one thing and setting people on fire, but they're actually destroying ancient museum pieces. I mean, what a bunch of schlubs. Well, you got to take them at their word. Common sense says take them at their word and create a deterrent to it. That's what defense policy is. Most of your defense arsenal, people never understand this. The reason you build the B-2 bomber, the reason you invest in stealth technology is so that you never have to use it. And that you lose people with. What do you mean? You're going to build all these stealth bombers and never going to use them? It's a waste of money. No, you have them if you need them. You hope their existence is a deterrent. This is why this whole notion of the nuclear arms race way back in the 80s, it was specious. The number didn't matter. So we had arms reduction talks. We get together with the Soviets. Well, we'll get rid of 15 if you get rid of 15. Okay, we'll both get rid of 15. Nothing's changed. If the balance of power doesn't change, nothing changes. If each side has 5, each side has 5. If each side has 5,000, doesn't matter. If one side has 10,000, the other side has 2,000, that matters. And that's what you strive for. You strive to be bigger and more powerful at all times than the people who want to wipe you out. And it is the idea that even if they try, they're finished. That acts as a deterrence. But that always doesn't work when you're dealing with insane madmen. This stuff it's going to get complicated and hairy, and it's why you need really incredible people involved in these kinds of subjects, policies, negotiations, what have you. Really serious people, not a bunch of pie-eyed utopians who think that they got some sort of magic power with the use of their speeches that can somehow convert hatred into love. That's the kind of danger we have now. The kind of narcissism and arrogance that thinks, I'm so special and my speeches are so good that our enemies will automatically love us. As soon as we get rid of our cowboy Bush, love for America will be how's that worked out for us? I don't think it has. Anyway, I appreciate the call, Greg. Not Greg, caller. Christopher was his name. I got to take another time out, but sit tight. There's much more straight ahead when we get back. One more soundbite here before we head back to the phones. Josh Earnest at the White House press briefing this afternoon. Question from an unidentified sycophant reporter. I know during the gaggle yesterday, Josh, old buddy, you sort of volunteered a reaction to some of those remarks, and I'm curious why you decided to do that. He's being asked about his comments about Netanyahu's victory and how it worsens American-Israeli relations.
That cynical election day tactic was a pretty transparent effort to marginalize Arab-Israeli citizens and their right to participate in their democracy. And Israel rightly prides itself on a vibrant democracy. But one of the core values of a vibrant democracy is ensuring that everybody has an opportunity to participate. And those comments and those tactics certainly do not reflect a commitment to those values.
What the hell here? What tactics? Let us once again review what happened. The Israeli election is taking place. The polling data all shows that it's nip and tuck, and in fact, Netanyahu might even lose. We find out that the Obama administration has sent campaign operatives and money to Israel to defeat the incumbent Netanyahu. And then we discover, a couple of days before the election, that an effort is being made by the Obama campaign team in Israel to turn out in greater numbers than usual the Arab Israeli population or vote. They started it. They are the ones that targeted Israeli Arabs. They are the ones that targeted money at them. Who knows what kind of walking around money is being tossed out over there, and trying to get them to the polls and have their turnout be a greater percentage than normal. So the Netanyahu camp found out about this, and they said, well, we have to respond. We have to react. We have to come up with something that will counter this if they succeed. And so Netanyahu makes mention of the fact that his opponent is attempting to gin up turnout in the Arab population. And that is what they're calling racist. When they started it, they targeted Obama's campaign operatives there targeted the Arab-Israeli vote. Then Netanyahu's team came along and accused the Obama team of doing just that, which was designed to increase Bibi's base and turnout, which it did. And Netanyahu wins in what turns out was never a close election anyway. It was a landslide, and Obama was on the losing side. And so now these reprobates, this is really beneath dignity, to come along here and accuse Israel of engaging in racial politics when the Obama operatives started the whole ball rolling. By the way, Benjamin Netanyahu has said, wait a minute, I could be open to a two-state solution. It's just that I don't think one's possible now. Now, you know what that is? That's exactly that's the Middle East peace process rearing its head. That's all that is. You are required in 2015 to say that. Part of the Middle East peace process is a two-state solution. Don't worry, folks. Nothing's going to happen in these negotiations. It's the status quo has been this way for tens of thousands of years. It's going to keep on being this way as long as negotiations are the key here. It's going to continue to be frustrating. There's going to be a solution, and the Middle East peace process just means you have to say the right words in order to sustain the process. Until the day comes that one of these sides is going to actually launch a military salvo to take the other out, all this is academic. And you have to say whatever you have to say to placate the whoever's that sustain the process. You know, folks, that election in Israel, the victory, Benjamin Netanyahu, that has really confounded Obama. Do you know what Obama did? He recorded a video address to the people of Iran and blamed the hardliners in both of our countries, he's telling the people of Iran, for all the mess that's going on in the Middle East. It's unprecedented. So our ally, Israel, has a presidential election. Netanyahu wins in a landslide, and Obama is so ticked off. He decides that Israel's not worthy of friendship anymore because this victory of Netanyahu is such a diss that he's going to sidle up to the Iranians. Guess who the top violator of women's rights around the world is? At the UN. Guess who? Who is the top violator of women's rights around the world? Israel. Israel. Yes, Israel. Stand by. From Ann Baevsky at Fox News. Guess who is the number one violator of women's rights in the world today? So here's, I posed the question right before the end of the previous hour, and the staff on the other side of the glass, they're all guessing. Oh, it's got to be Saudi Arabia. Oh, it's going to be Iran. Well, it's got to be some Muslim country for crying out loud. No. The key here, according to the UN, who is the number one violator of women's rights in the world today? And the answer is Israel. Because they are violating... They're violating the rights of Palestinian women. That's... it's just absurd. Look, you want to understand, Israel is the Tea Party. That's all you have to know. Israel is the Tea Party, and Benjamin Netanyahu is Todd Aiken. As far as the American left, the worldwide left, as far as the Democrat Party is concerned, Israel is the Tea Party. Benjamin Netanyahu may as well be Todd Aiken. Or, what was her name? Suzanne O'Donnell, the Senate candidate from Christine O'Donnell. May as well, I mean, that's the only way you can possibly understand this. Iran is the Service Employees International Union. The Palestinians are the NAACP. I mean, if you want to understand how this works, if you want to have this make the slightest bit of sense to you from the leftist perspective, it's what you must understand. Iran is the Service Employees International Union, big donors to the Democrats, and they're on the same side of issues. The Palestinians, Hamas, Fatah, they are the NAACP and the Congressional Black Caucasians. Let's see who else. Western Europeans would be the equivalent of the feminazis. In more ways than one, actually, there. And the enemy of all of this coalition, the coalition of the American Democrat Party, Iran, Palestinians, Fatah, Hezbollah, and Western European, that's the equivalent of the Democrat Party. And everybody else may as well be the Tea Party. And that's how you understand this. Now, here you have Boko Haram, which is bragging about the number of women they have kidnapped and killed. You have Islamic Sharia law, which is the most discriminatory against women philosophy you can probably find on Earth. There may be some weirder ones in obscure places, but in the midst of all this, Iran is still stoning women. They just stoned Soraya Sis. And they're beheading people. You're absolutely right. Saudi Arabia is beheading people. In Saudi Arabia, women can't drive. Nowhere can they drive. They have to cover their heads and so forth. And even the American journalists go over there and fall for it. Christiana Manpour covers up, probably doesn't drive. Now, she probably doesn't drive anyway. Chauffeur. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington. She goes over there. She covers up. She dresses the part. And then, all the while, ripping the shreds out of Netanyahu. Sometimes all you can do is laugh and say, here we go. The number one violator of women's rights in the world today is Israel, violating the rights of Palestinian women. That's the view of the UN's top women's rights body, the Commission on the Status of Women, the CSW. And the Commission on the Status of Women ends its annual meeting on March 20th, that'll be today, by condemning only one of the 193 UN member states for violating women's rights, Israel. Not Syria, where government forces routinely employ rape and other sexual violence and torture against women as a tactic of war. Not Saudi Arabia, where women are physically punished if not wearing compulsory clothing, almost entirely excluded from political life. They cannot drive. They cannot travel without a male relative. They cannot receive half the inheritance of their brothers, where their testimony counts for half that of a man's. Although the Saudis just did give women the right to vote for the first time in this year's upcoming elections. Didn't promise to count them. Well, he said they could vote, but they haven't promised yet to count them. And Sudan, where domestic violence is not prohibited. There is no minimum age for consensual sex in Sudan. The legal age of marriage for girls is 10. 88% of women under 50 have undergone female genital mutilation, and women are denied equal rights in marriage, inheritance, and divorce. And in Iran, where every woman who registered as a presidential candidate in the last election was automatically disqualified. Here's Obama on TV talking to the people of Iran, trying to develop a rapport and create an accord. Adultery in Iran. If a woman is caught committing adultery, punishable by death by stoning. Women who fight back against rapists and kill their attackers are executed in Iran. Did you not know this? The Constitution bars female judges in Iran, and women have to obtain the consent of their husbands to work outside the home. There's no possibility that the UN Commission on the Status of Women will criticize Iran, because Iran is an elected member of the Commission on the Status of Women. Sudan is currently the vice chair position of the Commission on the Status of Women. Now, I'm going to try to get serious for a moment, but it's a waste of time. This is the place, folks, where every half-baked cockamamie theory about global warming is coming from. I cannot relate to any of this that comes out of the UN. I mean, this is beyond parody and beyond description. I mean, they're very serious here. All of these countries I just listed, the offenses and the rules and the prohibitions against women, they're all true. If in Iran, if a woman is raped and she fights back and kills her attacker, they kill her. And Iran is a member in good standing of the UN Commission on the Rights of Women, or whatever it is. Israel officially announced as the top violator of women's rights in the world. Israel. This organization, United Nations, is just an abject joke. It's a bad joke. the fact that there are so many in the American diplomatic corps that take this organization seriously, this organization is due serious condemnation. I mean, this goes beyond offensive. This goes beyond absurd. This is the stuff of nightmares. But the reality is what it is. And of course, when you say that Israel, an ally of the United States, and of course Jewish, the number one location, by the way, the most focused anti-Semitism on this planet is at the United Nations. And here's Barack Obama sidling up to it. The American Democrat Party, the American left, the United Nations is the end-all, the United Nations source authority, the United Nations inviolate. It goes beyond argument. We need to get out of the UN. This is seriously corrupt. But it's even beyond that. Because these people are serious. And nations we're talking about literally have the tyrannical, dictatorial power to implement all of. There are people in the world being forced to live this way. And it is a shame that the United States of America in any way sidles up to any of these nations and offers tantamount support. And then while that's happening, they have to sit around and listen to the same people call American conservatives and Israeli Jews the modern focus of evil in the world as the big problem facing the world. This is seriously wrong. It is seriously corrupt. And it is an absolute outrage that the United States of America gives any of it the time of day. Back after this. I mentioned earlier in the program we had sound bites of Benjamin Netanyahu and Megyn Kelly last night, and I want to get to those now. This was Netanyahu's first appearance on American media after his election victory and after the regime went after him as a racist for daring to turn out his base after the regime had made a big pitch to Arab Israelis to show up in droves to try to knock Netanyahu off. So, Megyn Kelly, first question. In 2009, you said that you supported a peace deal that would recognize a Palestinian state, but the day before Tuesday's election, you completely reversed and said you didn't. Why?
I didn't retract any of the things that I said. The conditions for that today are not achievable for a simple reason. Abu Mazen, the leader of the Palestinians, rejects consistently the acceptance of a Jewish state. He's made a pact with the Palestinian terrorist organization Hamas, and the conditions in the Middle East have changed to the point where any territory you withdraw from is immediately taken up by Iranian-backed terrorists or by ISIS. It's only a dozen miles away from us. We would vacate territory. Instead of getting a two-state solution, we could end up with a no-state solution. That is, a solution that would threaten the very survival of the state of Israel. I said we have to change the terms.
So he's basically saying he didn't change anything. He didn't change his opinion. He had never been in favor of a two-state solution as it has been discussed. He was always talking about in the context of today, meaning the present. And he's right here in pointing out there is no desire for a two-state solution by the Palestinians. Abu Mazen, Hamas, you name it, and everybody knows it. Nobody on that side wants Israel to exist side by side with a Palestinian state. When they talk two-state solution, they're talking one state, and that's Palestine, and Israel is erased from the map. That's what they want. Well, who's ever going to negotiate that? That is something the Palestinians are going to have to win militarily. If they want that, if they want the map to no longer say Israel, if they want the borders of Israel to now say Palestine, they're going to have to mount a military campaign. They're going to have to defeat Israel. And as the terms of surrender, they're going to have to get the Jews that live in Israel to somehow move out and go somewhere else. That is never going to happen in talks. That is never going to happen diplomatically. That is never going to happen via UN resolution. It's never going to happen because Barack Hussein Obama wants it to happen. The only way that can happen is if the Palestinians and their allies, hello, Iranians with the nuclear bomb, can figure out a way to militarily defeat Israel. Now, the thing is, nobody in that region has ever been able to do it yet. Everybody that's attacked Israel has paid the price. They have lost, and Israel has claimed territory from the attackers. And then after a while, it's always been determined it was unfair for Israel to take that land. They said, well, wait a minute now. We were minding our own business, and they attacked us. And we took that land to make sure they couldn't use it to mount further attacks. Well, you got to give it back, Israel was told. You got to give it back. You got to be fair. And so they've given back much of the land they conquered after having been attacked. Nobody's beat them. And that's what's going to have to happen. And this Netanyahu knows this. There's no way anybody's going to come along in a negotiated settlement and convince anybody who's leading Israel to agree to erase the word from the map, get rid of the boundary lines, and have the population move somewhere else. It's not going to happen. It's in people's dreams if it is. And that's all he's pointing out. So Megyn Kelly then said, well, look, in running for re-election, you urged your supporters to get out and vote, warning that you were in danger, your party was in danger because, quote, the Arabs are voting in droves. Some call that racist, Prime Minister. The White House came out and said that you were divisive. You tried to marginalize Arab Israelis. Do you regret those comments?
That's just not true because
Stop
what I
the
said...
tape! I just saw the clock. We'll come back with the answer after our obscene profit break. Okay, here's Netanyahu's answer. Megyn Kelly's question. Okay, look, some people said it was racist when you urged your base to come out and vote because the Arab Israeli turnout was so high. White House came out and said that you were divisive and you try to marginalize Arab Israelis. Do you regret those comments, Prime Minister Netanyahu?
That's just not true because what I said should be taken in the larger context. I wasn't trying to suppress a vote. I was trying to get out my vote against those who were targeting foreign money that was coming in to target a specific group to bring down my
American
government.
Money?
The answer is yes. I wasn't talking about that. I called on Arab supporters of Likud. I said, look, there's going to be this effort, foreign-funded effort, to get the votes for that party, and I want you to be ready for that and get out the vote when that happens. That's what I was referring to, and you'd be surprised. We got a lot of Arab votes. I'd like to have more. But I consider myself as the prime minister of all Israelis, those who voted for me and those who didn't vote for me, Arabs, Jews.
Let me tell you what he's talking about here. He's talking about Obama. He's talking about foreign American money, and an Obama campaign team was in there to gin up turnout against Netanyahu. All he did was respond to it by trying to gin up his own turnout, his own base, which includes some Arab votes. And for this, he was called racist. And for this, he was accused of marginalizing the Israeli Arab vote. When, in fact, if anybody was trying to marginalize anybody, it's Barack Obama trying to marginalize Bibi. The American president was trying to secure the defeat of the Israeli prime minister. And he failed. He failed to do it because finally, somebody stood up to Obama and his tactics, something we're not used to in this country, but Netanyahu does it repeatedly. Whenever he's invited to speech to Congress, he does it, and he hammers Obama and takes it to him. When Obama sent a campaign team and American money to defeat him, Netanyahu stood up and said, here's a dose of your own medicine. He beats Obama every time he takes him on. So, of course, they're going to call him a racist. Obama's just not used to people actually standing up to him. That's all that happened here. Here's Bill in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Great to have you with us, the EIB Network. Hello.
Hello, Rush, and thanks for being at that great EIB microphone and providing the clarity and the expertise that you give us in these matters that are so important.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate that.
I do not believe for 1 minute that the events during the last 2 months surrounding the Prime Minister of Israel has had anything to do with the administration resetting their policy in the Middle East. I believe that he has constantly been arranging these things, and that clearly that this is done in the face of the Israeli government and their duly elected prime minister. Now, the sewer line, the main sewer line news media has come together with one voice with the administration in trying to say that now it's Bibi's fault for this reset of this policy. And I don't believe it for a minute. Wait,
reset of what policy are you?
Well, he's saying that now they have to reset, rethink the Middle East policy because of what Benjamin Netanyahu has done.
Okay, you're saying that it's a myth that they have to change their attitude toward the Palestinian state, because of Netanyahu's victory.
Absolutely.
You're saying that they've had designs on implementing their Middle East policy anti-Israel for much longer than Netanyahu's recent campaign.
Yeah, and the news media has chronicled every time that Obama has flew in the face of the Israelis and their duly elected prime minister. He's mocked them, he's snubbed them, and he's provoked them. And there's no way that this thing is just because of the last couple of months.
Well, I think that's true. You're basically saying that Obama's had it in for Israel from the get-go, essentially, and just uses this most recent election as an excuse to double down on it or some such thing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now, a lot of people don't want to believe that. There's a lot of what Obama's doing that people don't want to believe. They don't want to believe that they've elected somebody like this. So Obama's getting away with a lot because people don't want to consider what could actually be truthful explanations for all of this that he's doing. They can't really comprehend that, that's not the guy I voted. No. That's not what's happening here. So now then they're left in sort of limbo trying to come up with an explanation for whatever Obama's doing, either the speech to the Iranian people or vetoing the Keystone Pipeline or everything he's doing that is proving harmful to this country and its interests. Even the people who voted for him, a lot of it can't be that he's doing this on purpose. Because they just can't. They hold the presidency in such reverence that they can't believe the whole country was so fooled by this. So there's got to be some other explanation that we just don't yet understand. And yet, like you say, it's right out in front of our face. The reality is right there. All it takes is the courage to believe it, which a lot of people do not seem to want to muster. Anyway, Bill, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much, and for your kind words. It's not enough time for another call. Have to take a break, folks, but we'll be back and wrap it up after this. Hey, we have time to squeeze this in. Marco Rubio, here's his reaction to Obama's speech to the people and mothers of Iran.
This is a historic and tragic mistake. Israel is not a Republican or Democratic issue. If this was a Republican president doing these things, I would give the exact same speech. In fact, I would be even angrier. This is outrageous. It is irresponsible. It is dangerous. And it betrays the commitment this nation has made to the right of a Jewish state to exist in peace.
Yesterday afternoon on the floor of the Senate, Marco Rubio, Republican senator from Florida. Have a great weekend, folks, and we'll be back Monday, revved and ready with whatever happens between now and then.